forecast. We'll make sure you're not bored to death, but all your friends have disappeared, and you're the last one left. If you want to live, I suggest not doing drugs and having sex. Run through the forest grasping for breath, as you're chased by a maniac wearing a mask of flesh, tripping over dead friends. This isn't over until you get revenge. Final girls try to survive in a violent world. It's eye for an eye. Hide behind doors, lying underneath beds, trying to bide your time and find your strength, and figure out how much time it takes to escape before it's too late, or come face to face with a grim fate. Welcome to Class Horcast. Let's see how long you last as you torture to death. So come join your host Aran and Tom as we bring you a podcast that will leave you laughing in a body bag or a bloodbath. Welcome to Class Horcast. Let's see how long you last.
The Rage Virus, empty streets, a world collapsing in real time. Today we're diving into one of the most influential and haunting horror IPs of the 2000s, 28 Days Later, and its brutal follow-up 28 weeks later. From the terrifying speed of the infected to the emotional gut punches that hit just as hard as the gore, these films have redefined the genre. And I'm not facing the apocalypse alone. Joining me, as always, is the man who would absolutely probably abandon me if I twisted my ankle. Tom, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson, the Reptilian. I am the host and creator of Strange Brew podcast. I'm also a controversial, outspoken hip hop artist. So yeah, welcome back to the show. I think you would be wrong. I think I probably would risk my life to save you when we both die. That's probably what would happen, actually.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this as I was rewatching these movies, and I was like, you know what? I'd probably be dumb enough to think that I could like be the hero and end up getting everybody killed.
Well, we'll see when we talk about the 28 weeks later. My wife had stuff to say because she was like pretty much why? Well, so many times she's like, why? Why would you? But we'll get to that when we get to that. But
you need to record her sometime, and we'll like put an overlay on it, so it sounds like she's like calling in on a phone, like old school Howard Stern.
Yeah, why? Like, yeah, because it's just funny because she'll give her straight up opinion about certain things. That's for sure. But it was enjoyable watching both. We both like Cillian Murphy, because we both liked Peaky Blinders, right? Waiting for Aaron's sound effects.
Yeah, I was very sorry. The reason I have the applause there for people who don't get it is so many people pronounce the name Cillian.
That's what I do. I used to. Yeah. But, it is interesting, right? Because, like, I think on Strange Brew, we should cover zombies at some point again. Me and Billy did, like, essentially talk about the zombie apocalypse back when we never did videos, all audio, right? And this idea of, like, how could it happen? In what ways? How would you survive? Like, there's so many different attributes to how you would survive a zombie apocalypse. And it all depends on actually really a lot of times like where the virus came from and how it formed. And like, what are they, are they like these zombies where they're fast, or the George A. Romero slow zombies? It's like, there's all these different questions of what kind of zombie are we talking about?
I'll, before we get into that, actually, I'm just going to get some of the formalities out of the way for maybe people who don't know. So we're starting obviously with 28 Days Later. So just to give people a little bit of background now, there will be spoilers in this regardless, but it's just to kind of set the scene, I guess, for everybody. So this is the plot, I suppose, we're following. So it has been 28 days since Jim, a young bicycle courier, was knocked off his bike and injured. When he wakes up from his coma, the world has changed. London is deserted, litter strewn and grim, and the entire world seems to have vanished. The truth, however, is even more horrifying. A devastating psychological virus has been unleashed, turning everyone exposed into a blood-crazed psycho, driven only to kill and destroy all the uninfected. A bitter struggle to get out of the city with fellow survivors to a military encampment in Manchester follows. But once here, their troubles are just beginning.
It's funny. Some people might not like this, but I was like, it kind of sounds like the left. It's like a psychological virus that destroys everything in its way, and anyone that is not infected by the virus must be destroyed.
You know, I never picked up on that. I don't think before when I
There's a
watched
psychological. It was more like
yeah, like I've watched these a lot, both of these movies, and I don't know why it never like dawned on me. I was like, wait a sec, it's actually not like it's not like something they get infected by and like they start like rotting away and stuff.
it goes right to their brain. They like I said, even the second one shows it more. I think in depth of like how it like instantly just goes, and then all of a sudden you're in like crazed mode of like a visceral like zombie like creature. But it is interesting. Do you remember like the first time you watched this? Because like one thing that was stuck out obviously is that clip of him on the bridge where it's empty, which I guess they tried to film it where it was completely empty, but they only had like 2 hours or something like that. And there's if you pay attention very closely, they probably edit out now, but I'm sure on the VHS you can probably catch like cars and stuff like that weren't kind of supposed to be in the background that were moving because I guess the police were trying to really they had 2 hours to redirecting traffic and all that stuff. But it is interesting because I remember the music stood out to me. I remember watching this fairly young. I could kind of remember when it did come out and probably watching it with that Austin kid or some one of my friends, and then where it was I maybe have seen this maybe like 5 times, 4 times, like not that often. The second
Oh,
one,
I've seen this way too much. Also, actually, one of the few DVDs that I don't have a copy of is the first one, and
should probably get it before it's
yeah,
non-existent.
So upon looking, it's like pretty much out of print everywhere, and it's like really hard to get. Like I seen DVD copies for $125.
Yeah, I saw that. I heard about that. You couldn't really find it anywhere.
Yep.
How did we watch it? We needed to rent it on something.
Yeah, you
But
can
like,
get it on some of the streamers, and like I know it's on like PlayStation and shit, but apparently like physical copies, if you ever come across one in the wild, it's like a really good thing to pick up.
I probably could find it at some vintage antique store, and I'm surprised I didn't clue in right until we started looking at it. We're weird, like weirdly, actually, strangely, it was my wife that kind of pointed that. She's like, yeah, I don't know if you can get it, like buy it or whatever, and I was like, weird, like the
Yeah,
physical copy, but
I feel like I want to be on the hunt for that now, just in case, because it's like we always say about it could tie into the potential end of the world that we won't have movies if they just take them off the streaming platforms.
I know. Well, Klaus Schwab or whoever, I guess someone's taken over for him, but they'll tell you what you can watch, And Aaron's like, no way, I got me DVDs.
Yeah, I'll be sitting up with like pirate radio. Um, yeah, like you mentioned about the scenes being shot in London where it like looks barren and there's nobody there. So Danny Boyle credits all of this to it was shot before 9/11, and he talks about it in the commentary. He's like, yeah, we probably would have never been able to make this movie the way we did if it had been post 9/11.
Yeah, they ruined
those
everything.
Yeah, those scenes in particular. I know there's certain scenes, we'll get to it in a couple of minutes, but there's a scene where the Brendan Gleeson character and his daughter bring Jim and Selena up to their apartment. They were shooting that scene, I think, on 9/11.
Yeah, they were. The scene when Jim and Selena celebrate with Frank and Hannah was filmed on September 11th, 2001, which director Danny Boyle found strangely, it was just strange, and that this whole scene and how creepy it was.
Yeah, because he talks about that. He's like, it was weird to have to like film like a little celebration kind of set in an apocalypse while outside, from what we were hearing, it seemed like the world was ending because of all these attacks, and like you'd never seen anything on that scale before, and nobody really knew what was happening, and there was talks about London being next and all this shit, and like they're in London filming.
Of course. Look up the dancing Israelis, everybody. The film was shot in order of the script, which is very rare, but I think that's kind of cool because it was able for people to keep in character, especially, and be like connected to the story more than where it's like, okay, we're shooting the ending, now we're shooting the beginning, okay, now we're shooting almost the ending, like, you know what I mean? Okay, now we're back to the beginning again, and there's like shot by shot of all these different scenes. I'm sure as an actor it would be hard to stay in character, not in character, but in like, hey, where are we in the film right now, and trying to like have a residency with the emotions of that time of the film, where I feel like it would be like if I were to shoot a film, I know it'd be hard or whatever, but I would try to do it like in order.
Yeah, I
I feel
thought
like
that the whole time. I was like, I feel like, especially if you were shooting on like super low budget, like indie, surely it would make more sense to try and do it linear.
Yeah, because then people like especially the actors and stuff like that, especially if they're like, like you just be honest, like low budget, like just your friends or people or whatever. It would make more sense because then they would be kind of more tied and in focus of where the story is headed and where they are in the current filming, right? So I thought it was cool that they did that with like minimal reshoots or pickups, which was kind of a lot of films don't do that, but I'm sure that it probably helped to some extent, especially being this low
I would
budget kind
imagine
of
so.
film. And a lot of that church scene, right, where they have like all the bodies, they were like a lot of the actors like paid nothing. Like it was,
I think they gave them like
a cup of tea or something.
Yeah, something like that. It was like coffee and
crazy,
tea, and that was it. Which, look, I mean, that would probably be a cool bit of claim to fame now. Like, I'd love to be able to tell people, oh yeah, I was like an extra in that scene and whatever.
I know, like when you peed next to what's his name?
Yeah, pretty much.
You didn't look at his wiener, did you? You're like, oh,
no, I didn't get a chance. I'd say he probably had a hammer on him anyway. So it was released on
you with his dick out.
That's why I just when I seen his face, I was like, weird. I'll just stare at the wall.
So for people that don't know, we're talking about Midnight Meat Train when Vinnie Jones, Aaron met him in a washroom, which is like.
Do you know what's wild? That's not the first time that's happened to me. That was the first time, but it's happened a second time with Lee Cronin, who directed Evil Dead Rise.
Oh yeah,
he's an Irish guy, and I went to the Irish premiere. And I'm pissing, and then I look to my right or left or whatever, and he's pissing next to me, and I'm like, I can't say hello right now, really, can I? So I waited. I was like washing my hands, and I could tell that he was looking at me.
Yeah.
And not because he was like, oh my God, it's Aaron, I can't believe it. I think it was more he was waiting for me maybe to look at him so he could ask, what did you think?
Yeah.
And like we walk outside, and he was like, oh, did you see the movie? And I was like, yeah. He was like, what did you think? I was like, enjoyed it. Now in my head there was a glaring issue that I was like, please get that out of the movie. But I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it. Like the gore was fun and the scares and whatever.
You didn't do the Harold and Kumar? Nice pubes. Like that's one of my favorite scenes. That entire movie is when Jamie is like standing next to him, and he's like, he just goes to pee in the middle of the jungle. And Jamie's like, nice pubes, and the guy's like, what are you doing here? He's like, is this your bush? You're the king of the forest? He's like, well, I was just being here by myself, and then you showed up. So
I haven't seen that in so long.
It's so funny, that scene.
The movie was released on November 1st, 2002 on a budget of $8 million. Box office return of 84 million. Runtime of 1 hour, 53 minutes. Written by Alex Garland, who also wrote the novel The Beach, which was then turned into the movie with DiCaprio called The Beach, which was also directed by Danny Boyle.
Wow, I haven't seen that in so long. I remember the movie
such a good movie.
Creeped me out when I was younger.
I love that movie.
Watch that.
Yeah, I was thinking about watching that tonight. Actually, funny enough.
Weird. I could probably convince. That'd be a movie I could probably convince the wife to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd probably like that. Yeah, that's a decent movie. Mm-hmm. Alex Garland also wrote the 2012 Dread movie, the 2022 movie that I love, Men. Like that weird cult.
Do you love Men?
Yeah, that's gonna be taken out of context, isn't it?
What the hell is Men?
Oh, dude, I think you dig that.
I don't
know. I don't even know how to explain it. Man. Even though this has nothing to do with this episode, let me just
I'm afraid to bring it up, or it's gonna like your camera.
Harper retreats to the countryside to be alone in the wake of a tragedy, but her unease at the town's leering and uncannily similar men grows into a fully fledged nightmare as her arrival awakens something primal in the forest.
Okay, I'll check it out.
So like she gets there after something happens with her partner, and all the dudes in the town seem to all look the same, like the face. So like the priest and like the cop and this person.
In China?
No. And yeah, it's weird. There's like weird, like it's like a kind of folk, creepy cult horror.
It'd be more like Japan, like everyone's wearing those black suits and ties, and you can't really, and they all have the black comb over hair. You can't tell the difference.
This is even weirder, I'll be honest with you when you see it.
I'll have to check that out.
most recently he done that Civil War movie, and
I didn't watch that. I don't want to participate in that.
Yeah, it's I've seen it. It's yeah, it's just okay, it's whatever. And then he has a movie out at the minute called Warfare, which is another one of those war movies.
Oh, I've heard that's actually fairly good.
Yeah.
Jeremy McKenzie, who was a veteran, he went and saw it, and he's not a guy that's really into cinema because it's a lot of programming and stuff like that to some extent, or predictive programming. And he said it was pretty good considering he was in warfare. I think it's supposed to be take place in Iraq. He was in Afghanistan and Kandahar, so like he's like it's very close to like how you would feel in those moments. And I couldn't imagine being someone that has went to that type of warfare and seen what happens, especially of what like Afghanistan was like at the time, and then you watching a movie that just like, and a lot of his friends died and stuff like that, and like imagine you're like, and you watch a movie that's vividly real into what experience that you had, and then having to like, I'm sure that's a harrowing experience.
Yeah, it's gotta be crazy, but I think that says a lot maybe as well about the filmmaker, that they actually maybe put some effort into making sure it was for the most part factually correct. I've seen that's been getting pretty good reviews across the board.
I like the
movie is directed by Danny Boyle, who also directed the movie adaptation The Beach, Train Spotting 2, Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours.
That movie's weird.
Yeah, have you ever seen 127 Hours? But the dude, it's based on that real life story. The dude, he's like out hiking or something like that.
Yeah, and it's my boy that they've shoved to the side now. He can't do it. James Franco. Nobody knows where he's at.
Yeah, he's just like gone off the face.
I said to the wife, I was like, I don't even care what he did. I just miss him as an actor.
That's a good movie, actually.
Yeah, I like James Franco as an actor, right? I think everyone in Hollywood is a freak, so it doesn't really matter. They're all involved with like Diddy parties and stuff like that, despite what they tell you. A lot of them are on Epstein's list and shit. But like, I like James Franco and Dave Franco as actors, both funny, like charismatic, and it's just sad that like I'm sure he did some messed up stuff, but like we haven't heard of James Franco in like what years now?
Yeah, he's just kind of disappeared.
Well, obviously he did something bad.
This movie has
what's that guy's name from that 70s show? So I'm maybe tied in with some stuff like that. Who knows, right?
It has some big stars now, but at the time, I think a lot of these people, there was one or two that were like movie stars at the time. But
the guy from Harry Potter that plays Moody,
yeah, he's Irish as well. Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah.
Brendan Gleeson's in it. Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, Alex Palmer, David Schneider.
What's that movie that he's in? Gleason or whatever with
Bruges.
Oh, that movie's so good.
Yeah,
if we can ever do an off-brand for that like I remember seeing that like stoned out of my mind with a buddy that like literally watching probably on VHS in his like poor little house. The guy was fairly poor, and it was just like I was like shocked how like good it was, and like how the ending and it's a good movie. It's messed up.
It's a good movie. I like some of the taglines for this one actually. I only picked out 3. There's like a million, but they're all kind of just variations of each other. First one is "The days are numbered," which I thought was kind of like
simple.
Yeah, it's just kind of simple. Be thankful for everything, for soon there will be nothing.
That's actually not that bad.
And then the final one is his fear began when he woke up alone. His terror began when he realized he wasn't.
All of those are actually pretty decent.
Yeah, they are actually. To be
First
fair,
time I've ever heard like these tags. I'm like, oh, all those are actually not that bad. But that scene where he does wake up and it's like, even rewatching it, it's been years, honestly, because I don't think you could really find it. And if I find it on DVD, I'm definitely gonna buy it. I'm sure if I look hard enough, I'll find it somewhere. And that scene when he comes out and he like, and even in the hospital where they were gonna put bodies in the hospital, but they decided not to. They shot some scenes with bodies, but they're like, no, it's they want to kind of show how like the eerie element of being just totally alone. And then when he goes onto the streets and there's just like kind of garbage everywhere, but obviously at the time they were moving bodies to the church and other places to kind of keep them probably away from the people that were still surviving, especially when it first happened. Imagine that, like realistically, you wake up from a coma and then you go outside and it's like a barren wasteland, dead quiet, no cars. Like it would just feel so eerie, especially if they ever develop this where they could make like a theme park kind of like that. just the dead silence. I don't know how they would do it, but it would be creepy, dude.
I love the decision as well to take the bodies out.
Yeah, me
as
too.
much as like, it's like, oh well, why wouldn't there be bodies ever in a zombie apocalypse? I actually prefer the decision for them not to be there, because it starts to build that tension straight away. Because you'd be wondering, you're like, okay, for a start, I don't know what's going on. And then even if your mind, like, let's say people like us, even if your mind went to like, oh, it's a zombie apocalypse, the first thing you're going to expect is there's going to be bodies or zombies everywhere.
Yeah.
And then like the fact that you're walking around, you're like, wait, there's actually nobody. That's like worse again, because I'm like, now where is that thing? Because everyone couldn't have just disappeared.
I know. Well, could have been the rapture. Imagine being like the last guy. Everyone else got picked up by Jesus, and then like you're like the last person on Earth. Maybe there's a few other just degenerates, but like imagine you're like, I was in a coma, Jesus, please, and everyone got raptured, so it looked like that, where there's like nothing, there's nothing left.
You mentioned him, when he wakes up in the hospital, and I thought this was interesting. It was something that again never dawned on me till I rewatched it, like with the lens of, oh, we're going to record a show. When and I wrote this down word for word. I was like, when Jim wakes up in the hospital, he was locked in the room from the outside. So you see, he picks up a key that's obviously been pushed underneath the door from the outside. So obviously somebody knew, whether it was a nurse or a doctor, must have known that he might wake up at some point, or he might be okay. But obviously they couldn't move him because he was in a fucking coma. So they locked the door from the outside, put the key underneath, so that if he did wake up before he like died of starvation or dehydration, that he could actually have a chance to escape. And I feel like all them little choices that you don't realize maybe all make it feel more realistic.
Yeah, I agree. For a zombie movie, this is up there, probably one of the best. I think we should especially do Dawn of the Dead at some point, the remake at the mall, because it's pretty messed up. Did you know that they casted athletes as the infected because they were like, they needed people that were physically, prowess. They had this physical prowess, but also like it translates to the infected's movements, how fast they were. And especially when we get to the second one too, just that certain scene where he's running, it's just like, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you just have to book it. And like, if you didn't, you're done. But it was interesting. And because the amount of people that you see running in both of these films, it makes sense. You'd want people that were physically fit. You wouldn't want to like shoot a scene. It's like a 5-minute running scene. And then you see like, there's like 20 people going like in the back. It's like,
and it's something though that's brought up. I can't wait to see 28 years later, just for, and we're not going to talk about that too much, but I can't wait to see it, because if you look at some of the clips that have been put out there already, we see different body types, but they still seem to have the same attributes. So like, there's a guy who's like swole like fucking Bane, but he's like super silent and is obviously can move super fast still, which is kind of freakish as well, to think like that even if you had like an overweight person or a really tall and big muscular person, that they could potentially, just from this virus alone, still be able to like outpace you and stuff, which is horrifying.
Yeah, right. Because the infected wouldn't matter, right? It would probably, especially if this infection is what we kind of think it is this like psychological virus to destroy, kill, eat, maim people and all that stuff. You would think that like it probably would, because even like certain parasites, and there's actual real viruses that do like some horrible things to your body and mind, and can push you beyond, like Billy is probably a tapeworm or something. But like you think it would like run down your body until there's nothing left. So it would almost like, because your mind is more powerful. Look at like David Goggins and some of those other people, where you can push it to such a limit where if you ignore it being like, no, you're in pain, and you're like, no, I'm going to keep going. Your body can withstand a lot of things. So imagine if your brain is literally wired to be like, kill, and then all it knows is that eventually it would just go until your body is no more, until everything, your bones start breaking apart, your like muscles deteriorate, right? So you think that's kind of what this virus would have done to people.
And that's the thing I love about the concept of, I know they don't call them zombies in this, they call them infected, and they said that this was never supposed to be a zombie movie per se, but I love the idea of that, and you always see that every time the infected show up on screen, it's so frantic and like wild. Now, I know zombie attacks in general are always seen as quite a graphic thing, but for some reason, though, how this is shot is like every time they show up on scene, it's so frantic and all over the place. The camera work, everything goes crazy. You kind of don't know what goes on. I seen that he said that they had shot the zombie sequences in a different frame rate, so they could, when they edited the movie together, all the scenes that feature infected were played back, I think, in like 1.25 times the speed. So it gave it that, like, everything seemed like they were kind of moving at a weird frame rate, like not like stop motion, but you know what I mean? Every time the infected show up, it has this weird camera work that, like, makes it freakish.
Yeah. I think it looks good.
I did like as well that little opening scene at the start with all the news footage of all like the civil unrest around the world. And I feel like nowadays, especially, it seems even more relevant. But I think that was based on like stuff that went on in Sierra Leone, and like they were necklacing people in the street and stuff like that. And they were going to use actual footage, but then they felt like maybe we'll start to involve too many complaints and too much issues. So they just shot, like, I think a lot of that stuff was just shot like in their like back gardens and like random places. They just like shot that news footage.
Yeah, because there's no traditional opening credits. It's with the title appearing as the description and subtitle after like the Fox Searchlight logo. So there's something a little different, and that's what, like, especially movies in like, I don't know, say the 70s and 80s and somewhere in the 90s, when you had that like long intro credit and you're like, can we get to the fucking movie, man? Especially remember sitting in theaters. It's not like that anymore. Luckily they've learned, but you would sit for like 10 minutes waiting for the movie to start because they have to like add all these stupid credits. It's like, just do it at the end, save everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying attention to it anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of gone. Yeah, to be fair. I do like as well that the idea of the activists breaking into the lab to kind of release the animals or whatever. I feel like that's within the context of like something that's, you know, seems so unbelievable. I feel like it's quite a believable premise for how, you know, something may escape, because we see that all the time now. Like I've seen here recently, I think Shannon Airport in the west of Ireland during the week, they had to close the airport because there's something to do with, I don't know if it's like Palestinian protesters or something like that, and they ran out on the runway, and then they got into some big hotel in Dublin, and like the cops had to, it was like this big thing. And it just, there's loads of little things that happen in this movie that remind me of stuff that's somewhat relevant. I don't want to get into all like the politics and all of it, but it kind of, it was definitely ahead of its time.
Yeah, I agree.
For some of the things it was trying to say about like society and like us as a human race, like how fickle we are.
People are very easily radicalized, especially recently. It's so crazy. I'm sure there's like people out there, especially younger kids, that haven't fully developed their brain in any way, maybe never will, where they see one TikTok video and then they're like, oppression, and then they're like freaking out, like throwing like paint at buildings and all sorts of things that people do, or like some of those people that are doing that to like famous art museums, and then just like throwing paint on like these like ancient paintings, and or like, you know, a couple 100 years old, these beautiful paintings, to make a point about some stupid thing that they've been radicalized on the internet to believe. And I'm like, our world's lost, man. People don't have the ability to rationalize and think things through anymore because of their attention span is like on to the next thing. What else can I feel angry about or oppressed about or whatever, right? It's quite cool.
Yeah, and like there's definitely a lot of like, I suppose, undertones of that in this to a degree. You know, maybe not so much specifics or whatever, but there's definitely a lot of I don't know how to say it. Like there's a lot of things that I suppose if you really dig into the movie,
that reflect like human behavior during these kind of times.
Yeah, and I didn't think at the time, I was like, I never thought of it like that. I was like, oh, it's just a really cool kind of freaky zombie movie is essentially what I looked at it. But then when you listen to any of their interviews, they did actually think a lot about like all the little subconscious things that are in the movie that's supposed to kind of reflect us as a human race, and like how, you know, how we can turn on each other. Like I was looking up, I had written down, I was like, the whole concept actually scares me now more than it probably did when I seen it when I was young, because I had no context. It was just a scary movie. But like, you know, over here at least we had like the outbreak of foot and mouth disease. There was mad cow disease that could be passed to humans and stuff. And like,
what I think about all those. I'm not going to say anything, but
all the inquiries into that afterwards, like, and then you see like the government and all these like different places that were supposed to be in charge of all this, all the mistakes they made. You could kind of tell they didn't know what to do when the outbreak happened. They didn't really do whatever protocols and stuff just kind of went out the window, and it just kind of shows
it's fear mongering a lot of times too. If the government says for your safety you're not safe, that's from one of my songs called Conspiracy Theory Part 2. But even while we're here with measles, we're like, oh my god, a measles breakout, and I'm like, you're if you got vaccinated from measles you should be fine. That's the whole point of why you got it. So you shouldn't probably worry too much about that. Last time somebody died of measles was in the 90s. So
yeah, and like it's just and like I suppose to double up on that, because I don't like to. This isn't a political thing for me or whatever. No. I just mentioned this stuff, like, and I'm sure there's people that don't have the same beliefs that we do.
You don't have to agree with me on any stuff. It's like, let's talk about a horror movie and have different thoughts and opinions and meet in the middle, rather than this idea of like, oh, if you don't radically think the exact same ways that I do, that I hate you, or because that's where our society is right now.
And it just, like, let's say if you have all your trust in the government, I think and let's just say, for example, that they are trying their best to do the right thing. At the end of the day,
big quotations around that.
It's just other humans that think, oh yeah, this is the best way to do that thing. And then when shit hits the fan, you can see really quickly how, like you said, fear comes in, even from their point of view. Like, for example, the fear of, say, the common man overthrowing the government is like a no can do.
I can't get my pension.
And it's like something like that happens, and then they start to behave irrationally based off of the fact that, like, well, we can't be overthrown, so now we have to do something absolutely wild to try and like rein back in. And there's a lot of stuff like that. I think
they control everyone through fear. Most people should realize that, no matter who you are, that fear is the best. As they say in Dune, fear is the mind killer.
Here's something else as well that I didn't really think of until this time around. That how scary the idea is, right? That the government or whatever, section of whoever is supposed to be like trying to figure out this rage virus thing. And let's say that it didn't go bad. So they were running testing to basically figure out rage and be able to kind of dull it down and stop, in their terms, stop violence. Now think about how scary that would have been, right? So if they were able to exploit that, they could basically just control the entire human race to have no opposition. Like they could just dull everybody down to the point where...
that's what they're doing now.
But you know what I mean? Like, if you think about it within the confines of the story, it never really comes up. But if you actually think about it, they were trying to figure out like how human rage works. So why would you need to figure that out unless you were going to try and exploit it?
Dude, they're developing microchips right now that can go into people's brain and essentially make them like autonomous robots. Like, they've openly discussed this. There's video footage of them promoting this stuff in the World Economic Forum, amongst other places, of like, well, if we put this in you, we could shut down the receptors to this and that and this. And then they can literally control your brain, how you think, how you feel, what makes you angry, what makes you sad. That's pretty dangerous. The people in power should not have access to any of that stuff. But we've let them, I'm a believer, everybody out there, the least government involvement in your life is possible. I think that if we, believing you can't survive without the government is like believing animals can't survive without a farm. It's the same thing. We've been taught that, like, oh, they're looking out for us. I think you should look a little deeper and see what the hell.
Yeah. And like, to humanity. One way or the other, it seems to be fucked. Cause so let's put it in the context of this movie. Everyone says, oh, well, everything went bad because those activists let the chimp out and then he infected the thing and it spread, and, England was just fucked. And I'm like, yeah, but we also don't get to see the other side of the coin, which is, okay, that never happened. That was never discovered. And the government managed to eventually figure out how to control rage. And then somehow we all get dulled down without even realizing. And like, you never have the energy or like that violent streak in you to ever like uprise against anything. Because if you think about it, right, throughout human history, rage has been a key part in like
warfare.
People, like people rebel, and I don't always like. I'm not saying warfare is always a good thing, but I mean,
I know.
okay, so let's take the English occupation of Ireland. If the Irish people hadn't have been able to use their rage and like have that kind of revenge streak, we wouldn't have taken our country back, and I'd still be saluting the king or the queen or whatever.
Yeah, that's why I hate when people are like, we need to get rid of hate and intolerance and all that other stuff. And it's like, realize that hate can be, you should hate the people that are actively trying to erase you. Like that's, or kill you or hurt you. You can use these emotions for actually good. For good things, not maybe communist revolutions, because that's what most revolutions were, but revolutions to spark new change and stuff like that. Remember the movie The Network? I don't know what to do about the Russians or the inflation or the crime, but all I know is first you have to get mad that these things are happening to you, that there's people out there that are allowing these to happen to everyday people while they enrich themselves at the back of the people that they're supposed to represent. Okay, let's carry on. But, people need to realize that, like,
I love as well
control human emotion in that way.
Yeah, and I love that. I don't know if it's ever really put like this within the movie, but essentially all the virus does really is just make us more of something that we already are.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, I'm not saying it's a good thing. Like, I'm not saying, oh, let's develop a virus that does this and let it out or anything like that. But I'm just saying it essentially, all it's doing is just intensifying that emotion that you've already got.
Are we already doing that? Isn't that like, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk or Trump, despite what people think. If you're on one side, they think all of a sudden you like the other side, and it's like, no, that's not what happens. But the woke mind virus, as they call it, I do think is a very real thing. If you see how a lot of people act, you can say one thing to someone, they're like, whoa, like they turn to like Goku or something like that, where they like flame
that's
up.
That's why I try not to say anything, because I just don't have the desire. I don't care. Not that I don't care enough. I do care about things. I don't care enough to like argue with someone who I already can tell there's no point in arguing with. I'm like, there's no point in having
we
a
have voiced
conversation.
our opinion on my show and stuff like that. But when this stuff comes up, this is all supposed to be an escape, this show and stuff, and horror movies in general and cinema in general. But when these things do come up, I want people to realize that it's like, I care for everybody. I want everybody to just get along and stop this madness, because there's obviously people orchestrating it. That's a fact. So,
and this actually, that ties into what you just said, because the story of this film as well, the emotional story of this film, which is vastly underrated as well, shows I think the power of humanity, and like how people who probably had no business ever crossing paths, in your everyday life, when you've got to go into your cubicle and you've got a mortgage and 2 cars and kids and all this, and you're just in your own head and you're trying to live in your own little like prison, and everyone's doing the same thing. There's a lot of maybe relationships, conversations, crossing paths with people that maybe we're not even actively, but we just don't realize they're just passing by. We don't look at that person and smile at them. We don't offer help. They don't offer us help. Everyone's afraid to like connect with anybody.
That's
and, like, nobody really knows what to do. And I feel like this shows that when shit really hits the fan to the point where you like all these characters obviously think that there's maybe potentially nothing left, that very quickly those relationships are like intensified and everything speeds up. Like there's a scene where and I had actually written this down, and I don't know why it caught me as quick as it did, but the scene when they're having the picnic, I was like, it really shows the simple nature of life and how many of the things that we think are important don't really matter very much at all. The relationship between Jim and Cillian progressing so fast shows the nature of humans when all distractions are removed, and we live for a more simple and genuine time. Like they're just sitting there, like eating sandwiches or whatever in a field in the middle of nowhere, like in a castle ruin or something. And like everything is fucked, but it kind of shows that like ultimately when you remove all this crap, all this technology, all this garbage, like all we really have is each other.
It's true. And that's why I've commented on my show about this stuff of radical individualism. This idea that we're all individuals and you need to be your truth and all the other stuff that they feed people. It's like, no, we need collectivism. A lot of people, when I've done videos speaking out against some of the stuff that's going on in the world, they're like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, a good start is collectivism. Realize that we need each other as humans, as different people. You see this in different ethnic groups all around the world, is they stick together, man. And especially in the West, have been taught like not to really do that, that you're an individual. You need to individually be yourself, which is true. You need to embrace that, but also you need to embrace that. I was talking about this the other day. If shit ever hit the fan like this, or some sort of thing that reverts us back to a time without all this technology and convenience, because convenience is a prison in itself, because everyone's so consumed with their glass prison, they don't realize they're even in a prison to begin with. The best way to control people and control prisoners is to convince them that they're not in a prison to begin with. But you used to have this thing. I was like, so if I have chickens, I've especially for food, say I have chickens that lay eggs, that you can eat. Then you have next door, someone has meat birds. And then down the street, someone has cows. And then on the other side, someone has pigs. And then someone has vegetables, and someone has weeds. Someone has alcohol.
And at some point,
you just barter.
Yeah. And at some point, through necessity, you're going to have to craft those relationships there. And maybe even you, like, maybe there's a guy down the street that right now in the circumstances, you're like, oh, fucking dick. I wouldn't spit on him. Fuck him. And then when things like this happen, you kind of have to go, okay, well, we've both got to drop that now and figure out like the best foot forward here. And that all kind of has to go away. And there's something that somebody commented on a video that I watched, and I thought this was, and again, I feel like I'm tying in like nowadays so much, but like there's a lot of social commentary in this, I think.
I agree.
The comment was, and I actually forgot to get the commenter's name, but he said that so the idea is always conveyed to us that hell is other people. However, in the story of this movie, they have turned it on its head, and we are shown that actual hell is no other people. And when you are left all alone, that is true hell.
Yeah, it's true, right? Like,
you think about it, like why do you do anything you do, really? Like, if you didn't have a wife or a girlfriend or a partner or a boyfriend or whatever, you had no kids, you had no friends, you had nothing. Like, would anything be worth anything?
No, and that's like I said, why you kind of revert back to this idea of tribalism, where people don't really have a tribe, especially in the West, the way that we used to, of taking care of each other. And then you wonder why they're going towards these certain groups that I think are very unhealthy and very dangerous ways of thinking, and people, that I'm not going to get into them. I think everybody that knows me should know what I'm talking about, but right. And then they're drawn into these very dangerous tribes that, and end up self-harm and conflicting self-harm on each other because of their radicalized views of whoever taught them that, right? So, and then you see this throughout like history in the Soviet Union and some of these places where, if you can condition people this in, and then they will all like start banding together, where it's like the 100th monkey theory could work good and bad, right? That you could have the idea is like these monkeys on another side of the world, on another island, figured out how to like whatever. I can't remember the whole story. Crack open a coconut and get like stuff on the inside and build or create this food source. And then another island that they're totally isolated. The exact same breed, or not breed, but the exact same monkeys did the exact same thing, even though there was no connection. It's like this social subconscious thing that's out in the ether somehow. And then you have that in good and bad in humans. Everyone starts to realize, what's being done to them. And then you have this conscious shift. We need to go a different direction. But you can also have it in a negative way, where too many people are starting to think these crazy radicalized views, and then it forms a bigger, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And like, look where we are as a society, right?
Yeah. It's like,
everyone's at each other's throats, man.
Literally, I never thought about movies like these two specifically in that context before, but there's a lot of that. And I'm not saying that was the intention. I don't think they were trying to make some sort of political stance or anything. I think it was more trying to show the human nature side of it, rather than being like, oh, the government is bad, or the government is good, or this is good, or that's bad. I think it was more about the human relationships of like all the things that you might think are the important things. So when that all goes to shit, then, and that none of that's left anymore, and then what happens? And like, even more so in this, I think, okay, so we're 28 days later, right? And the reality of it is, and this was something else that I had written down at some point, was, we all like to think, we all like to think that, oh, well, if this would happen, I would like be MacGyver, and I would craft all these weapons, and I would like be out like, and planting stuff, and I'd have farms, and I'd have this and that. But reality is that for a while at least anyway, like we'd be living off of junk food and stuff. Like you see when they go into that underground store and like they're eating all garbage and it's like, you know, Pepsi and shit and like that. Realistically, for as long as probably necessary, we'd probably be living like that till we figure out like, wait a sec, most of us don't know how to farm. Most of us don't know how to fucking, you know, plant a fucking
Yeah,
pot.
and you see why like everybody just think about that in general. You see why they're making us so dependent on the state and not on each other. Because like I said, if we did that where everyone had the means of producing something that would benefit the community, guess what? You don't really need a government. You need essentially one or like maybe 5 people in your own. That's why I believe in localization of things. You need maybe 5 men, 2 women, or something like that are like controlling, and everyone agrees. And then there's conversations to be had on a small level. The government means, if people don't know, govern means control. Ment means mind. It's mind control. But like once that goes, man, you're gonna have to like what happened in Europe recently. Everybody, their power went out all conveniently, all at the same time.
And that was something I had written down. When they're hiding that shop in the underground, it really shows the reality of something like this. It's daytime, but the lack of electricity, etc., would make any and all times of day and night just completely miserable.
Yeah,
and
dude,
like it would, yeah. And you might like look. We all might like to think
Belgium. It was Belgium. It was like there was like 6 different European countries that their power structure ended at the same time. So I'm like, it's a little weird.
But like, but my point is, right, let's just, even if you remove like the governmental aspect of that, let's just say something happens and the government can't get a hold on it. Let's just say, right, something like that was just a complete coincidence where all these power stations just happened to fucking blow up or whatever, right? And let's just, I don't believe this, but let's just say it was a big, massive coincidence, right?
Yeah.
And like, you really think like the government are just going to be able to go and fix that? Because I don't believe that. I think if stuff went wild, like our world would fall apart really quick. And I've seen it on like a very small, not even comparable. I was getting a flight from Orlando back to Dublin in 2016, and there was a hurricane. I can't remember the hurricane that year that hit Florida, and we got stuck in Orlando. We were the last flight to leave the airport. There was a government issued curfew.
Mm-hmm.
And us and British Airways were the last flights to leave Orlando International. And of course, we were the very last one. They do a turnaround. So they drop the passengers off that have just come from Ireland. They turn around the plane, they clean it, they do everything, they refuel it, and then they put us back on and we fly home. And I'm sitting like looking out this big, huge glass window. You know, it's like all the seats in the airport, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to notice I was talking to the guy I was with, and like over his shoulder, I'm like, I could see it for a minute while I was talking, but I didn't really register. It was like this black smoke. And then I'm like looking, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And he's like, what? And the two of us stand up and walk over to the glass, and the plane is on fire. And I'm like, right, that plane is literally, you know, 200-300 feet away from the glass. And it's like, it's a transatlantic plane, like, so it's massive. And I'm like, I don't know why, but I was like, instantly, I was like, well, I don't want to get blown to pieces. I don't know how it works, but I just assume a plane is on fire. It's full of jet fuel. I don't really fancy getting incinerated like Final Destination. So then other people start to notice, and everyone just starts to fucking run away. And we're in this, like, it's a pretty big corridor, but when you put a couple of hundred people in it, and it was like something out of 28 Days Later, everybody's trying to run at the same time. And I'm not going to stand here and go, I was, you know, morally correct and all. I was like pushing women out of the way. I didn't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest. I literally didn't care. When I seen everyone screaming and running, I was like, motherfucker, I'll tackle kids. I don't care. And I'm not, and that's not to sound cool or try and be funny. I'm being genuine. And I think that's human nature when you're put in that position. Like if somebody had have walked out in front of me with an AK-47 and said, right, who wants to get shot and be the one to sacrifice and let everyone else go? Not very many of us are going to stand up and say, yeah, shoot me.
No, I know. Right. So it is interesting because, like I said, like we had an ice storm not too long ago, and not near me, but still up northish in Ontario. And some people didn't have power for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, and then you when you're you have to pay with cash. And I'm like, all that shit fails. Who's keeping all the infrastructure together? Not really. A lot of people. I can point to a lot of many examples of why it's not, but I'm not going to do that because people probably get mad at me. But
but even if they were having your best interest at heart, like I think there's things out there that could happen that what happens then? Like, I mean,
well, we all faith that, they're going to keep the infrastructure going. I'm like, most people don't even know how even the world works or how we even get power or why there's power. You know what I mean? Like if something happens,
even other things, let's just say, you know, okay, I live in Ireland, a really small, up until now, neutral country, which I don't believe we are in a lot of ways. But like, if we were to get invaded again, dude, like, do I really, or does anybody that lives in this country really think that our government would even be able to protect us, even if they wanted to? You really think that they're not going to be on the first plane? I think
they're purposely doing it now. I think you already are being invaded.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, if another military from another country came here and wanted to take over Ireland, like, even if our government wanted to resist, number one, it wouldn't happen. But number two, do you not think they'll be on the first plane out of here and we'll all be just left to fucking rot?
100%. They care more about themselves than anybody. That's why it's funny. You think these and
again, human nature. Everyone
human nature. If we'll get off this topic for a second, but like I just want to say one last thing, essentially, right? Is that they are more selfish and more focused on enriching themselves than anybody else in our entire society, right? Like if you're in the government, why are these people not qualified to have joined the military, have been a firefighter or a police officer? You should at least show that you are willing to sacrifice your life for your own people. But none of the politicians do that. They're like bankers and lawyers and like some of the worst, literally worst corporate jobs in the entire world. And then somehow conveniently they all become politicians because that whole machine runs off of bankers and lawyers and politicians. It's a whole structure. So they all work within the confines and the means of the system, right? That's why it's like once you become, if you want to go inside the system to change it, it's not you who's changing the system. It's eventually the system who changes you, right? So like some of those people, especially politicians, like they wouldn't save you. They don't care. Like they've never even worked. Like we said, one of the conservative, they're not conservative. They're center leftist, but the conservative guy lost his seat. So another guy from Alberta gave his seat up so then Pierre could still keep his seat. And people were joking. The guy has been in politics and been a politician for his entire life. He's never had a real job. So if he doesn't do that job all of a sudden, what the hell is that guy going to do? He's obviously rich. He's made tons of money, but all he knows is how to play political theater and play pretend, right? So I'm like, if those people all of a sudden say because they're all rich, but if they were just poor all of a sudden and had to work with the common people, as they call us, they'd all be doomed because they've never really done anything significant in their life or even worth it. Like for everyone, I hate politicians. I think they're the worst corrupt people in the entire world, but they wouldn't save anybody. They wouldn't even save their own family. They'd probably just ditch their own family, man.
That's what I mean. I think that's human nature. That's the biggest problem we have and the biggest thing we have to overcome. I will say this is definitely one of the most haunting parts of the movie. I always remember this sticking out to me when he calls out in the church. Them two dudes look up with like the big wide like open, but they don't do anything. They just look up like they're shocked, and I'm like, what in the fuck is that? Weird. Like I can imagine.
He doesn't know what's going on either.
Yeah, so it's like they're like that bit where they just pop up and they're just like looking at him.
So weird, yeah.
Dude, that shit is freaky, and like this movie always reminds me of like I don't know, like a video game. Or I remember being in school and I'd be like daydreaming about like surviving a zombie apocalypse, and every time I watch this, it makes me feel like a kid again in that sense of being like, how wild would it be though to end up in a world like that where you've got no idea what's happening? Because like
I know
it would be very hard to. I know they call them infected; they're not zombies, blah blah blah. But like, it would be very hard to come to terms with, like, you know, waking up from a coma or whatever, and someone saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, while you've been in a coma, there's essentially zombies out there now."
Yeah. So why? And then remember that the preacher or whatever, and it's like he's walking towards him, and it's like you think he's like a normal guy, and then nope.
Yeah, there's a lot of like really freaky shit.
Yeah, don't like it.
In this movie, I will say, what else did I have here? Yeah, I love that scene with the church. I don't know what it is about it. It just freaks me out. All the little choices as well, like I said about living off the junk food and stuff, which again would probably be more realistic for most people. That's what's going to end up happening.
I was joking about stockpiling seeds.
The way I
was gonna research how to stockpile seeds because I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, man.
I know like people that do that and stuff. The way he can't accept, what he's being told, and he still has to like visit home to try and like clarify. He's like, nah, and I can I think it's a real, again, that's probably like a human, like a realistic reaction is to go, no, that's not, there's something else going on. So I'm just going to see my parents and like, I'll figure it out from there. And then like when he gets there and he sees them dead, and then the music in that scene, like it changes completely again. So like we have this weird, like emotional, like it's kind of haunting when you look at it. And then the little poem on the back of it, I didn't actually get what it says, but it's something. Let me pull it up here because I felt like this was one of those things that again was just quite, I don't know, like kind of scary in a different context. Let me just pull this up.
Got some of the images is like wow.
Yeah, so like he takes the picture that his parents are holding in their hands when they're dead in the bed. Mm-hmm. And obviously I'm assuming they've killed themselves because of what's gone on. And it just says, Jim, with endless love, we left you sleeping. Now we're sleeping with you. Don't wake up.
Oh, that's fucked. It is
and
creepy.
I just think that's grim because obviously they knew he was in a coma when all this went on. So they went and done away with themselves. And that was like their little, like, please don't wake up so you don't have to come back to this world.
Would you do that?
Oh, fuck. I don't know.
Would you try to survive, or would you just be like, fuck it?
I think the initial reaction would probably to try and survive by any means necessary. And I do think that's where, people would start to figure out who they really are, I think, when put in this situation. And I do think I had written this down at some point where I do think as well, it would probably play out in the sense where, and I know it's kind of the generic movie thing to be like, oh, well, the guy who's the weakling is always the hero. Mm-hmm. I do think that more often than not, though, the more unassuming people would end up being the ones that last versus, you get those people that have that big bravado where they're like, well, if there was a zombie apocalypse, I'd just like chop all their heads off and I'd like save everybody and do. I think they'd be the first people to die because you're so naive to think that it would be just as simple as that. And I think
those guys are like, I'll see red, bro. I'll just see red.
That doesn't work. Like, and I think I'm not saying me or you, but I think all people like us who were unassuming to most people may have a better chance of survival than those kinds of people.
I said that once to Billy. I was like, I think I would survive apocalypse. And he's like, do you? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I've been mentally prepared about some of the stuff that's going on in the world for a long time. And he's like, yeah, that'd be the problem. You would just be losing your mind. And it's like, these are just old ladies out on for groceries or something. I'd be like, it's the apocalypse. And like shaking old ladies thinking they're zombies or something like that. Some like scary movie shit where I just start like, I think everyone looks like a corpse or something. I start knocking out old people.
I will say as well, some of my favorite shots in all cinema are probably in this movie. It's the shots of the city and stuff, man, are like,
oh yeah, I know,
so well done. Yeah, and it's like
even the buckets and the hampers that you wouldn't really be collecting water with.
I know, yeah. It's just like, and again, I think it shows a real human, like naive side where you just think you're doing your best and you have no idea. Like he's using the plastic to try and get the condensation, not realizing that doesn't work. You can't collect condensation if it's concrete underneath. You would have to have art.
Yes,
because the condensation would have to come up. But again, that's probably a thing that maybe someone might have heard somewhere and went, "Oh yeah," and not realizing like I have no idea about how it actually works.
Yeah, here I can bring this up like this. Look at how it's just one of these scenes, right? Where it's just like I guess they saw there was like they were like, okay, get me like 100 buckets, and then it didn't look good, and he's like, okay, give me 1,000 buckets because they wanted this scene, which is
and again. I think it seems like a really simple, like, what's the point? but I think it has a big place in it in the sense of we get to follow normal people just like us who are trying to survive. There's no real heroics. It's just all being done from necessity and like what you think is best. And a lot of times what you think is best isn't the right thing. Like when Jim and Selena are running from the infected and they're going up the tower block, I love the fact that Jim is begging her the entire way to please wait for me, stop running, come back for me, don't leave me. Because I think that it shows the humanity of like the dude doesn't always have to be like, well, I'll run back down the stairs towards them and I'll kill them all and I'll be back soon. No, chances are most of us, if we saw all those covered in blood, screaming, running at 100 miles an hour, I'd probably shit my pants.
Well, see, and that in the second one especially.
If I was injured, dude, like I'd probably be begging for whoever's with me, please don't leave me behind.
Yeah. Or just put me on my misery.
And yeah, like something has to, again, like Brendan Gleeson, I love him in this movie as well. And it's that, like, you know, he's a dad just protecting his daughter by whatever he thinks is best.
Well, the British shouldn't have gave up their guns. Think about if a realistic zombie apocalypse like this happened in America, there's a lot of people that have assault rifles that would just like, you could post up with like 100 dudes and you would be fine for a bit. Like, you know what I mean? If you had the weaponry and the power, like, it's essentially just keeping it, watching your six, everybody kind of collectivizing together and then using that, you know what I mean? There's some wild stuff that they have in America that they could have used now. So I would just like find a tank and just like roll around in a tank sealed shut, man.
But it does change the dynamic. And I think having grown up in Ireland and spending a lot of time in the UK, I think that's why these movies still give me the creeps a little bit when I look at them. Cause I'm like,
yeah, what all the Bobby's going to do with their like,
and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, that could like, I can see that happening like here or in the UK very easily because we don't have anything really to protect ourselves. We don't have weapons. And like even our police force in Ireland don't have weapons. Like they have tasers. So it's like, you know, I can't even expect like the local police to be able to.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think they would, because I think everyone would just be for themselves. But I couldn't even expect them to be able to protect me anyway. Like our riot police have sticks.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Like nothing. You're going to get overrun instantly. And then
I'm sure, as I've stated numerous, I'm sure the politicians have armed guards though.
That's what I'm saying. They'll all be gone.
Pretty
like
sure.
They'll long be gone. They'll either be in a some sort of underground base in a mountain or something, or they'll be gone off the country.
That's what I'm like, dude. People, you don't think they're not aware of some of the stuff, maybe not like this, but could happen. Like Mark Zuckerberg spent millions upon millions of dollars building a bunker. There's tons of bunkers out there that most people don't even know where they are. They're everywhere.
Which is a little bit unsettling. The scene where they go into the supermarket and they're getting all their groceries or whatever, and it kind of goes happy for a few minutes, which again, I guess you would probably take some of those like things
small
that would,
things.
Yeah, it would seem like such a big, exciting thing in that situation. I was looking into that. So supposedly that's an actual like market, and they just they found out that the store manager was like a huge film fan.
That's cool.
So he was like, I'll let you in here once we close and you can use it all night, so long as you sign a couple of posters for me. That's all.
That's cool.
That's all he asked for.
That would be awesome. I'd be like, go fuck up my shit.
Yeah, I think that was the only thing. It was like, you know, whatever you do, can you just put the stuff back or like not damage the whole store?
Yeah, that's cool.
But like all them little things like you talked about there a minute ago, you know, stuff we don't think about, like you know, any form of like gas or anything like that, food, water, supplies, heat, shelter, electricity, transport, all that stuff gets taken away, dude, like where it's not readily available. Like I can walk down the stairs when we finish this and I can go to the store and I can get whatever I like. I can drive to a gas station and fill up my tank if I need to. I can, you know, if my tire blows up, I can just call the guy who I train with that owns a tire store.
You can't.
Yeah, but then it's like if all that stuff gets removed, then like how long would I last without falling?
Dude, this is why I'm like, dude, there's a report from the Canadian government that said in 2040 that Canadians will be living off the land, hunting and foraging for food. A government detailed document said this. So what are they expecting to happen?
It's freaky. Do you think you know the scene where they stop to get gas for the taxi cab.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, she says to Jim, she's like, "Oh, we have enough food," and he's going to walk into that building, and he's like, "Oh, we don't have cheeseburgers though."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, and then he walks in, he starts calling out, and he can hear something. I seen a lot of people online who think so. Remember, he turns around, the kid runs at him, and he beats the kid. He steps on him, and then he beats him with the baseball bat. There's a lot of people that feel like he done that on purpose. That he wanted to, like, I don't know, come up against one of them or whatever to like overcome it or whatever.
Maybe of just to face the fear, I guess.
Yeah, and that subtle little hint, we'll get into it very shortly about like towards the end of the film and his character arc where you're seeing the little bits of his rage coming out in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's like his rage against what's happening to him. So it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna whatever's in here. I don't think he knew it was a kid, but like whatever version, man, woman, whatever, that he was just gonna smash their head in with a baseball bat.
I feel like you'd do that. You'd be like, I've had enough. I just want to hit one of these fucks.
Especially as a kid, I probably would. You'd be getting away with that.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. I do like the human element though mixed in with the infected. It kind of brings you on a weird like emotional journey as well.
Yeah.
That roadblock scene is quite scary. And when you see like Manchester's all burning, remember they think they're going to get there and it's going to be like this oasis. And then they get there and the camera pans up and like the city's on fire. You can see all these big explosions and shit. And they get to that roadblock. That shit always scared me. And when the dude, Brendan Gleeson's character, I think he's called Frank, when he looks up and the drop of blood goes in his eye.
Oh yeah, I hate that scene. Ugh.
And like instantly though, the way he goes like, and then he starts to like move around a bit weird. I'm like, oh, that's fucking scary. And he's a big dude as well.
I know. Not cool, because then you're like, and especially once you get like where you get that's what obviously every movie does this, where they build up the characters and then you get to know them and then something happens and you're like, oh, of course, right? Like,
yeah, and he's like, they made him such like a likable older guy, I think. And that was another thing I liked about this. I like zombie movies in general, but the thing I appreciate about something like this is they've really made the stakes feel high, because like they kind of showed it like even one infected can just ravage everything. It's not as simple as like, oh, well, you know, like say a movie like World War Z where you have Brad Pitt and there's like 8 million people in Jerusalem and they're going around with like Gatling guns, like shooting them all. Like that's cool.
I don't know if I've ever really watched that movie.
Like it's an action movie. It's like fun to look at. It seems like a big spectacle, but the reality of it is that would probably never happen, because if you had one of these infected, like I guarantee if there was one infected person in my like area where all these houses are, chances are it would probably kill all of us.
Yeah,
just being realistic, like it would probably kill everybody in this street. Like I can't imagine too many people are going to be able to handle that. And then how do you handle it? It's like, what like how do you go about it? I don't know.
Just also lose your mind.
But the whole thing feels really surreal and like video game, like when the military are posted up in that big like manor or whatever, that big like, I don't know what you would call it, like a mansion kind of country house. Like you would really feel as well going into that situation. I know if I was the survivors and like these military guys pick me up in like a military jeep and they bring me to this place and I see like barbed wire and barricades and roadblocks and
like, landmines.
Oh yeah, literally I wrote down, they must be driving in there thinking this is the safest place in England.
Yeah, I know.
Like you would be like, you'd be like, wow, we're in a big house.
I don't like where it goes from there with like all the men getting very rapey and stuff like that, because they had to think about like realistically that's also human nature. They have to be like, we have to keep the population going. Here's this young girl and this other woman, you know, and then I don't like that whole thing. And it's like I never like that type of stuff in movies, because it is like,
yeah, I don't like that, but I feel like it was yeah, I love it. I don't like it. I love it. It was another real choice, I think, because as much as I always felt like I was like, I don't really like that about the movie, the way it takes that weird shift.
Yeah.
Then when I was watching it again, I was like, you know what though? Chances are, and especially if like, look, I don't know. I'm not saying I've never in the military, but like you've got all these military dudes that are probably half like cracked after being like at war and shit. And then they're all put together.
on the sailor boats, bro. They're all
and
like,
like,
okay,
yeah,
I haven't seen a woman in a fucking month.
and like now they're in this situation, and it's like, you know, you see this young girl and this fucking chick, and you're like, well, I guess needs must here.
Yeah, it's never a fun thing to like see in movies, especially like when we did The Hills of Ice 2. That the whole premise of that movie is based around that idea of like, oh well, we have to keep our inbred family going, so we're gonna kidnap you and impregnate you with our inbred blood. It's like, oh fuck.
I did like as well the way some of the soldiers tried to be like, no,
Yeah, this is
no, I'm
wrong.
not, because I think that would probably happen as well. You might have somebody who go, I'm not really. I know we're in like some sort of apocalypse, like, but I'm not really into like the whole rapey thing, even though we're at the end of the world here. And the fact that they're like, well, fuck you as well, we don't care. Like they'll just turn on anybody.
Yeah.
That shot, you know, where Jim gets out and he breaks away. Remember, they're bringing him to like the execution place or whatever, and he breaks away from them. And at one point, he's lying down on the ground, and there's a fucking shot, man. It's so like, I don't know why, but like visually, I'm like, wow, that's like really surreal and bizarre looking. Where we're looking between branches of a tree, and you see a plane going across the sky.
Yeah.
And like just the soundtrack, the score right there, and that visual, that was actually shot in Danny Boyle's back garden. I think he spent 2 days. He just set the camera out and just set it to record. Weird, and just recorded a bunch of different planes going over his house, and then just picked that shot out. But it looks so real. It kind of looks like a documentary, like somebody's like recording it for real. And I always loved that shot because you can kind of tell he's lying there and he's in the situation he's in, and he can't necessarily get out of it. But then he kind of realizes that maybe the rest of the world is actually all right. If there's people flying planes, there's obviously got to be more than what I'm thinking. The world can't be over.
Yep.
And it's like he's there and he's like, in one way, so hopeful, but then he's extremely helpless as well. It's like, well, I'm all the way down here, so I'm still fucked. Regardless of whether the entire world and it's only England, like let's say only England is infected. It's like, well, I still can't do anything. Like, how am I supposed to get off of England? I can't fly a plane. I can't drive a fucking boat across the ocean. So I'm fucked. I'm stuck here. I can't even drive a boat to Ireland. So I'm just fucked.
Yeah, well, essentially, right? You'd be like, okay, I'm doomed. I don't even like you said it would be more of a survival of each day. That's it, right? That's you kind of are like.
It'd be so grim though. And another big takeaway I had from this as well, the way they use rage in this movie more than just like, oh, the infected are rage driven, blah blah blah. But then at the end, you see how Jim kind of shows everybody like the truest form of human rage, where he comes back to take revenge on the soldiers. He lets them all. He draws all the infected there. He's letting them get killed by the infected. Then he's killing them at the same time.
Oh yeah,
and
he's like creeping around. It's great.
And like the scene where he like drives his fucking thumbs into the dude's eyeballs. Yeah. And like you can tell he's just kind of like snapped a little bit. He's had enough. Yep. And then when she sees him again, and she's like looking at him for a second, you don't know whether he's infected or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
And like I just like the way they kind of flipped it, and like he ends up using like the infected's only weapon and kind of humans' only weapon, which is rage, which leads into what I said before about if the government were looking to exploit rage and be able to tone everybody down, they're taking away basically the only weapon we have.
Oh, well, look at what's happening with all these protests, right? It's like people are mad because of what they're seeing happening across the world. And then
even if you were able to take away that emotion, if you could take away that emotion from the start, then you wouldn't have to deal with any of that as a government. Like you would be able to say, well, everyone is docile. Nobody's going to say anything. It's all good.
What do you think they're trying to do with the food, the water, everything, this fucking chemtrails, all of this stuff? People, I don't want to believe this stuff. It is, there's patents for all this stuff. It's well documented, but what do you think they're doing by trying to dull us out or, when they're putting all these kids on Ritalin and stuff back in the day? It was for a reason.
Yeah, it's scary. There was several. I don't know if you looked into any of this, but there was a lot of different endings that were shot.
I heard about that. I heard about that way back in the day too.
Yeah, for this movie. So there's one. That is
because originally when they were just hitting, it ends when they drive off and like hit the gate or whatever. But then I guess what Fox saw it and they're like, we want to put an ending to this, so they gave them money to do it.
Yeah, so several endings filmed, a few in which Jim is taken to a hospital where he dies from his gunshot wound. Selena and Hannah would leave together, and it was meant to be an open ending that would suggest that they make it. However, upon testing it with audiences, everybody voted that they felt like it showed that the death was certain for them. So they changed it afterwards, that it didn't give off like the feeling that like,
you want hope, right?
Yeah, Jim was dead and then they were going to be okay. It more so seemed like, well, Jim is dead and he's just saved you guys, and now you're gone out back into the world and you're probably dead as well.
Yes.
And I think Danny Boyle wanted to keep it like that. But I think the studio were like, oh, we don't want something as bleak. It's a bit much like for a studio film.
Yeah.
There was a version where the mansion at the end actually housed the lab underneath it where the virus was being made.
Oh, of course.
And now I thought this was a bit of a stretch for me, I'll be honest with you. It was a bit too movie-like. What would happen is when Frank turns, when the blood gets in his eye, Jim and I'm assuming the soldiers or whatever would like strap him down or something. They bring him to the mansion. They tell Jim like, oh, the lab is actually underneath this house, and they bring him down and whatever. And then I don't know how Jim just discovers all of this, but he's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain all of his blood out of his body, and I'm going to replace all of his blood with all of my blood, and I'm going to save him and in turn give my life.
Weird. I don't like that either.
No. It's a bit too movie-like.
Yeah.
I think that really takes the reality of it. Like, how is some dude just gonna? And then also white.
This for a zombie movie. This is one of the more realistic ones to begin with.
Yeah, which I like, and how it's shot as well is really weird. Like the way some of the shots look like a movie,
like a VHS movie. Almost like a like a camcorder.
Yeah, like even there, like you can see in some of those shots, like it's quite blurry and like the handheld kind of.
Yep. Yeah, like
we see there and stuff.
That's why I remember when I watched it on VHS, because I guarantee I didn't watch this on DVD. I watched this on VHS. I guarantee it.
Dude, if you were to show that to someone who had no context of anything, like you would actually probably believe that.
You're like, you know what happened in the early 2000s? There was a zombie apocalypse.
Which is actually quite fucking scary, to be honest.
You know what I always want? For some reason, when you get up in the morning, I want like one of those torture chamber fucking stretchers, and I feel like that would feel so good for like 2 minutes, and then you'll pop out of the sockets.
I used to have an inversion table. I don't know if
where they put you upside down. Did you like it?
Yeah. No, it just gave me nosebleeds all the time.
There's another different way to do that stuff. Like, I actually want to do that on Strange Brew for all the fans. I've been wanting to do this for so long, is do like the most messed up torture methods.
Oh yeah, that would be good actually.
So many messed up ones, like they would put your balls in a thing and then squish them till they would pop.
That's what fun. Before we move on to the sequel.
Yeah.
What are you giving this out of
10 dirty infected monkeys? Just kidding.
Yeah.
How many monkeys?
out of 10 chimps, what are you giving it?
Considering what it is, and I don't know, I would say a good 8.5-ish kind of thing, because this is like one of the better zombie movies. It is nostalgic. There is a lot of good elements to this movie. The fact that it's low budget, and I feel like they pull off, I would say an 8-ish kind of thing. Like, it is a fairly good movie. And it's just also one of those things that is nostalgic. Like, a lot of people that may not even watch horror movies know what 28 Days Later is, right? So just based on that and and sometimes I based on how many times I'd watch it. But I've seen this movie a good couple times, but I do think that it's a movie I would go back to and watch and show my kids when they're like teenagers or whatever like that. It's a decent movie. I think it's well done. I like Cillian Murphy. The acting's well done for what it is, and some of those low budget movies are way better than any of the garbage they produce now. So 8-ish.
I think as well, when you're put in that position, you kind of have to have that more guerrilla style where you really have to like figure out and like think about things in a different process than you would if you were given like 100 million to make a movie. You could just like, oh, we'll just make everything CG so it looks real garbage, you know, at the end product. I'm gonna go and give this. I had originally written down, the first thing I wrote down was I'll tell you now exactly word for word. I wrote down, I'm gonna start by saying I'm giving this movie a 9 or maybe a 9.5 and say that it's one of the best zombie movies of all time, even though it's not a zombie movie.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10, I think.
That's fine.
Okay, so then we get our follow-up a couple of years later. I think it's like 4 or 5 years after the original. We get 28 weeks later in 2007. So this is 6 months after a rage virus was inflicted on the population of Great Britain. The US Army helps to secure a small area of London for the survivors to repopulate and start again, but not everything goes according to plan. Released on May 11, 2007, budget of 15 million, which is around double what the original was, and box office of 65 million, so it made 20 million less than the first one. Runtime of 1 hour and 40 minutes. Boyle and Garland were behind the scenes on this one. Danny Boyle did help to direct some of that opening sequence, which I think you can see, like, it stylistically feels very much like the first one. They were executive producers, I think. They helped with some of the script ideas and things like that, but they took a complete backstep. Reason being, supposedly, because I was interested by that. Why? So supposedly they were like, we just feel like we'd make the same movie again with more money. So we were like, we actually decided ourselves it wasn't something that we were taking off the project or we sold the rights or anything. We literally just felt like maybe if we bring in some other people, they can make their movie in our universe. Because it needs to be different. We can't make that same movie again. It can't look the way it looks. It needs to be maybe bigger or more or show something different in a different way. It needs to be shot differently. We need to have different characters. They just felt like it would have been quite stale to just bring Jim back and Selena and be like, oh, here's Jim and Selena again.
I maybe would have liked that a little bit more, not gonna lie.
I think the original plan was probably for them to not bring them back so they could bring him back in a third movie.
And now we see his weird corpse, where the fuck that is, just like coming out of the grass.
So that's not him.
It's not? But why does it look like him?
I think that was done on purpose. They said it wasn't intended to be done on purpose, but it's actually not him.
Weird.
Yeah, they've even come out and said that that's not him. And they said the actor it is, and they showed, like, they put his credentials and all online for everyone to see.
So why they do that then?
I personally think they done it for clickbait.
For sure.
But I'm sure they're not going to say that, like, but I think they've done it for clickbait. And I don't know if you've been looking much into 28 Years Later.
No.
But oh, dude, they're doing a lot of like cool marketing. There's like I'll have to send it to you. I don't know what it's called, like the virus leaks or something, I think it's called. There's like a website and like there's a password and you have to figure out what the password is. You put the password in and it gives you these files that's like about some of the stuff that's going on in the world now.
Weird.
As it's set in 28 Years Later.
Strange.
But yeah, you can definitely feel though the shift of tone, I think, in this movie from the first one. Like that opening scene, I fucking love that opening scene though.
It is pretty good. There is issues I have with this movie, that the same issues my wife has, and we'll get into it when we get further down the road. But the opening scene is pretty gnarly of them kind of just, we obviously are aware that something's gone on. All the windows are boarded up. They're kind of just eating over dinner, and you kind of just like get right into the movie, which I do enjoy in that aspect of it. They're kind of talking. You have the kid come to the door, and then it more or less all hell kind of breaks loose. But that opening scene is pretty great. And then obviously you have like the dad, like that scene where he like looks at his wife as she's like, what the fuck? Like, you know, as he just leaves through the door and leaves his wife behind during the whole big opening scene of the attack of they've let in the boy now. And then obviously the boy has brought probably all the zombies with him, all the infected. and then it kind of just like ramps up from there, and you just see like obviously the beginning, the people within the movie kind of get destroyed in the matter of like 5-10 minutes, right? It's like they're showing these characters and then they die instantly pretty much.
So how do you feel about Don in that moment? Do you agree or disagree?
I think he could have done more to save her, but even my wife was like, "Leave that stupid kid behind, man. Just why you try to look for the kid? Like you don't owe him anything." But it shows that she has that the woman in the movie has like a good heart, right? She's trying to like.
Yeah, but how did your wife feel about him leaving her behind? Or how did you feel about it?
Interestingly enough, Chelsea was like, she should have just left the kid and went with the husband and stopped doing this dumb thing of like, you know, you either survive or you don't, right? Kind of thing. I think he didn't necessarily need to leave her behind. I feel like he could have went, grabbed him really quick, and then shoved him into the door. Who knows? He could have sacrificed himself. But realistically, like we both said, we were like, if he would have stayed, he probably wouldn't have survived anyway. He would have been killed with his wife.
So
and then it's like, and then you find out that he has kids, right? And it's like, does he sacrifice himself for his wife that is running around trying to find this little boy she has no connection to and couldn't save, obviously, anyway? Maybe if the dad intervened, maybe, just maybe, they could have all survived. But the fact is, what we see in succession of what happens when he runs away and then she gets killed like in the window, it would have been pretty hard for him to save all three of them, like himself, his wife, and the kid. And she kind of damned herself.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. For a long time when I used to watch this, I used to go, fucking scumbag, I hate him. He's a fucking, can't believe he done that. But then if you think about it realistically, like you know, it seems like a scummy move. It seems like a scummy move, but you know, put in that circumstance, most of us would probably react that way. If you really think about it, you know, he wasn't that much of a coward, really. He's the first one to swing with the crowbar while the others just run away. He really gets put between a rock and a hard place by his wife, to be fair, which doesn't help. And then I suppose he has that, like you just said, that initial choice between potentially dying in a somewhat inescapable situation over some random kid or choose to live for his own kids, which is what I think the wife should have also realized that went like, we need to live for our kids. So as you know, as horrible as I'm sure she has that maternal instinct, you have to decide, oh, hold on though, what's more important, my maternal instinct in the moment for this poor random kid? Yes, it's shit. But like, I've also got two kids that I don't know, they're in a different country now. And like, I need to make sure that I can see them again.
I know. And that's like the choice that you're going to have to make, right? In some of these situations, right? And even that scene where he's running is pretty gnarly. Like, honestly, I probably have seen this movie years and years ago. I don't really remember it. I probably watched it when it first came out. I probably haven't seen it, if I even have, in like a decade or something like that, maybe more. So I watched this not remembering really anything at all. And there is that scene where he's running and it is pretty gnarly and scary that he's like, they're pretty fast and he's just booking it and you see him coming over the hill. Like, your adrenaline would be through the fucking roof. But the thing is too, with recently, like to bring him up again, like when I listen to Jeremy, he's like the only podcast I really try to keep up with. It can be kind of depressing because he really shows you how bad the world really is. And he's just talking about like those the people that think they'll survive some of these events, like like a big revolution or a civil war. He was like, you don't realize how much that stuff takes out of you. Those spurts of adrenaline tire you out, especially if like, he's like, you think you will be able to survive when you haven't ate. You know what I mean? You have like barely any sustenance and food. You know what I mean? And then like those spurts of adrenaline actually tire your body out worse. And then, so even on that boat, he would probably have to like lay there for a sec, catch his breath. And as he's like,
even the way he's like, when he first gets in the boat and he kind of, they're jumping on it and stuff. And the other guy that tries to pull him in and he gets ripped away. And as he kind of gets a little bit away from the zombies or whatever, he's going like,
shit.
oh shit. Like it would, I can't imagine what that would feel like, dude, with all them and like just
he does a really good job. I'm not gonna lie, his acting is on par with like
Robert
how you
Carlyle
probably
is.
react.
He's a great actor.
Oh shit!
And I think
Oh shit! Oh shit! Yeah,
yeah,
and he's like, oh man.
it's fucking scary though, man, to see how fast they are running behind him, and then like you
Yeah.
said, it switches to that shot where not only are they behind him, now we see all the ones coming over the
Coming
crest of the
over
hill.
it's so
And
wild.
it's like, oh my fucking, like that's like the stuff, you know, when you have a nightmare as a kid or maybe even as an adult where you've got stuff like, I definitely dreamt of things like that, being chased by like these things that never stop, or I'm punching somebody like and my punches aren't affecting them and things like that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that like surreal feeling.
Yeah, check out everybody. We did me and Marie that I keep pushing Aran to bring on the show because she does her own kind of movie podcast. Is we did a 2-part about dreams and like the creepy facts behind dreams, and then we talked about nightmares and like the kind of hidden meanings behind certain nightmares, like being chased and all that stuff. And I dream very vividly a lot. Even last night, like all my dreams are pretty vivid. And dreams are a weird thing, dude. Because you can dream scary, like you could watch this movie before bed, and then I've done that. Me and my wife have watched a horror movie before bed, and we both literally are dreaming about the horror movie and like what would happen if we were there, stuff like that. And it's crazy how like cinema can program that into your head like that. I don't think I've ever had a zombie dream.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I would love to have a dream about like a concept like this. I'm not gonna lie.
I've always been fascinated.
I've always been fascinated by writing a script for a movie that's based around a kind of a universe like this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, look at when they're like, it's like they're all booking it. It would be cool to be a zombie actor in this stuff and be like, look, there I am.
Another thing as well, I think that's vastly underrated is the cinematography. That shot where the camera pans over him, so we see him at the edge of the frame, but you don't see what he's running from yet. And then it goes completely around him, so you can see what's behind him. And then it tracks back again, so you can see the stuff coming over the side of the hill, and it's all following in like one swooping shot.
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of great cinematography. Even when he's in the boat in the water, like how the camera's like sitting base level with the water and stuff like that. And
it's scary, dude.
That's wild. You know.
I always loved that opening. I'll be honest. I can't say it feels as well really in the vein of the first movie.
Yes. I'll let you carry on before I give me and my wife's opinion about certain things that like this movie didn't really need to happen.
I did also want to shout out actually. So the director is a guy. Geez, I'm gonna butcher these names. Let me pull it up here so people can, if you are watching this, you can also try it along with me. Juan Carlos Fresnadillo.
Fresnadillo. Dildo.
Yeah, give a shout out to him. I think he done quite well.
Yeah,
and there was one other person that I did.
No, you have Jeremy Renner in this, which is cool. Like that's before he was really famous, I feel like.
Yeah, I see loads of people like comment going like, "Oh, Hawkeye is in this movie."
Yeah, I know, of course, because that's what he is known for now. Idris Elba, or whatever the hell that guy's name is, he's in this.
Yeah.
I'm like,
John
even the
Murphy
guy
done the score. Yeah. He's amazing.
Yeah, there's some pretty big names, and some. I feel like Jeremy Renner wasn't even that famous at this point.
He was a biggish name, but not
not like today.
Yeah, amazingly big or anything like
even
that.
Harold, what's his name? The guy that plays one of the military dudes. He's been growing as an actor, and he did that Them or They, whatever the hell that show is, that horror show. They Them. Just kidding. But that whatever that horror show that came out about that town.
Yeah, the guy who plays Flint in the
something like that
helicopter.
Yeah.
So initially there was an idea to have this movie called 29 Days Later.
I don't know if
it would have been
that.
Set in the same timeline, and it would have picked off. It would have picked up after the end of the first movie, and it would have had Jim.
But I wanted to see that just because of Cillian, right? That's why
I know. Yeah. There was another idea that was set in the 28 days of the outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So
So a different storyline in that.
So we go back the 28 days where Jim is asleep or in a coma.
Oh, that would be cool too.
And we would have seen that, and it was going to be set around.
And they could have had like a shot of him in the coma bed and then end it, like at the end or whatever.
They could have actually brought it right up to that.
Yeah.
They were going to make it about a team of Marines who were sent into London to either save and extract the Queen or the Prime Minister. And then you were going to see how it wasn't just going to be like an action movie. Like they weren't just going to go in and shoot everything and everything was going to be perfect with explosions. It was going to be, these 4 or 5 guys get sent in and very quickly they realize, oh, we're like disposable here and this is not the way we thought this was going to work.
And then the Queen shapeshifts into a reptilian and bites the heads off.
They realize, they get into Buckingham Palace and she bursts out of her suit into a big reptile.
And just flies away.
I did think as well the concept of repopulating somewhere in London was still quite eerie to me. That would be very haunting. I think having to come back and try and pretend like everything's all right after something like that.
Well, and then
we've seen how people were after
happens.
the big C word. I don't want to bring it up.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the word, but like after that thing that happened in recent years, how scared a lot of people genuinely were. When
I know, I got called a
you're
scumbag for not walking this right direction.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Like, and it's not. Some people, I don't even blame them because, like, the likes of my grandparents.
They fed them fear, man. Fear.
Yeah, the likes of my grandparents and stuff like were for a long time. Now they've gone the other way and they're completely on the opposite side.
But they told you're gonna kill your grandparent.
Yeah, and like they felt like that. I remember bringing them out like when things started to get like eased down. Mm-hmm. And like they were just like, can you just bring us back home? I'm good.
And I got segregated from my own family because of this stuff. My grandma's like, I was like, I'm healthy, I'm young or whatever. My grandma's like, you're the ones that are spreading it. I'm like, no, that's not how this is working. I have my own thoughts about that whole thing. Aaron knows, but I don't think it's what they think. I don't think it's what most people think actually was going on in a lot of regard.
I do think Robert Carlyle is fantastic in this movie. He plays Don, actually.
The little boy?
No, the dad.
Oh, yeah.
I love him in it. Jeremy Renner is quite good as well.
Well, and you see the shift of characters. Like you see the saying about like the shift of when he gets infected by the mom or whatever. Once we'll get to that, but like how it is just this thing of like snap. Okay, it's not like you die and then come back like in other zombie movies where they're dead. And this virus
there's no
like waking up.
The thing I liked about it as well is there's no like emotional like, oh my god, he's been bitten. We have to like cry over his body, and then he goes, kill me and do all that. And I'll do kill me, escape and save yourself. There's none of that. It's literally just he kisses her, the spit gets in his mouth, and then instantly he's like smashing his head off the fucking wall, and like his eyes are bleeding. That scene, man, is fucking scary. He plays that so well. He looks so scary.
Can we talk about this? My wife's like the whole thing, and mine too. Is like this movie didn't need to happen because if the kids weren't stupid enough to leave like the quarantine center and then to like go home, and it shows obviously this idea of human nature or whatever. But if they didn't go to that house, right, and they didn't go looking to find like and go back home to their own house and all the dangerous things they did, including going to get the moped. All those things that they shouldn't have done. You don't know who's affected out there just because they claim that it's, that the affection has been gone, but they don't know that for sure. And then essentially all those lives of all those people in that quarantine center that the military set up, you killed because of your own stupidity.
Pretty much.
Even when the movie ended, Chelsea was like, that didn't need to happen. None of that needed to happen. It was those stupid kids' faults. And there was numerous times in the movie where the kids were just fucking stupid and they weren't doing what they should have been doing. They ran the wrong direction. They go another place. They go looking for their mom. Like all the things that these kids did to essentially destroy the lives of probably hundreds of other people because of their own stupidity. Even in the like ending where they're like, they're in the soccer field or football field, whatever it is. Like all of those scenes, there's so many times where I'm like, it's your fault. You did this and now you're crying over it. You literally did this to yourselves because of your stupidity.
Yeah, it is true. There's some like
that's the whole movie is their dumb, stupid decisions destroys everybody's lives.
There's parts of it you kind of have to just like, just I don't know.
I hate movies like that. Like even horror movies, it's fucking slasher killers. Where I'm like, that's not the way you want to go. What are you doing? Like I know people panic, and it's like in the moment you don't know how you're gonna react with this like wholesome, loving scene. There, we're showing it right now. It's them driving through the desolate city, and there's nothing there, and then they go home.
I don't know if I'd like. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I'd do that either. Like even though I know they say in it like the U.S. military have said like, oh, the last infected died 6 months ago or whatever. I still think if I was a kid, I would shit my pants.
I wouldn't be wanting to like leave and go and then just go.
I'd be happy just in that big tower block. I just chill out. It's fine. I'm up nice and high. Hopefully nothing gets up here.
Yeah, I know. I would be running around the city.
The shots of the city and stuff, and the rail line that they had built that's like raised up, so like nothing can get to it, that brings them in, and like the idea that they're going to live in tower blocks, so it's all like protected and everything is kind of up high. We're not at ground level because ground level is dangerous if things go wrong. Now, the flip side of that is when things do go wrong, being up high didn't really mean anything, because if ground level is fucked, you can't stay up forever. So essentially, that's not always going to work either. I did see lots of people as well brought up that like, well, how does Dawn have access to get into her when she gets brought back to the lab and whatever? And she should have been under armed guards, and she should have been this, and she should have been that. I do agree with all that, like, but I think there has to be, unfortunately, a way in. So the only way to do that was like, obviously there's not very many survivors that are brought back yet, and he happened to be one of them, and this is how he got this job as like the caretaker of the whole building. You had to make some way for him to be able to get into her. And I think, look, if you kind of, I suppose, suspend some of that disbelief there a little bit, you can make the argument as well that like he's probably panicking, going, shit, the kids are going to find out that I fucking ran and she was still alive.
Yeah.
And I know
when you find out the mom is alive, and then you're like, it's gonna come out that he just like dipped out. He's like, well, you said mom was dead, and he's like, well, I saw her banging on a window.
I get like that he was lying to them to protect them and whatever, and he didn't want.
I wouldn't kiss her, man. I'd be like, shh, nothing happened.
It's a weird one, isn't it? And he obviously doesn't realize yet that she has anything or can pass anything to him, and this is why he done it.
So dumb, man. The whole thing of him going to like see her, and then he's like, I'm sorry, and this is like, I don't know if I would maybe like I wouldn't be kissing on her.
They're trying to push the human nature thing again, I think, where it's like he completely disregards any safety protocols, because he's like, well, that's my wife, and now my kids are going to hate me because I said that she was dead and she wasn't dead, and now I feel, and he's probably been dealing with that guilt all along of being like, maybe I could have fucking saved her. Maybe if I had done this, maybe if I had a double back, maybe if I had done something else, maybe if I didn't let her fucking open the door for that kid.
You try to rationalize and also blame yourself. This happens so often with people in everyday life of like,
and especially
I could have done this, I could have done that. Like, it's like,
I think especially as well as a dude and as like the dad and the man of the house, you're kind of expected to like know what to do when everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And then when you kind of, I'll be honest, right? I could probably see myself making the decision he makes to run like that. And then I would probably feel, though, for the rest of my life, I would be thinking like, I'm some shitbag coward. Like I should have been able to, like, as a man, I should have been able to like fucking fuck those zombies up and like save my wife, and like everything would be great.
But realistically, he probably would have died too.
Oh yeah.
I have a feeling if he stayed back, he would have died.
Well, what would have happened there is, she probably would have gotten infected or whatever, but she's asymptomatic, and then he would have been ripped to fucking shreds. So,
yes, she survived anyway.
I do love as well when he kisses her and whatever, and like how vicious he becomes, how quick, and just like smashing her to fucking pieces and punching the head off her and stuff. I think it was like, it showed like the level of rage, and it doesn't, it switches instantly. Like there's his wife who he was willing to kiss and risk everything for, and now he's like punching her head in. And that switch as well from like the calm kind of oasis to complete frenzy when he gets free. I love that scene. And when we see, is it Idris Elba's character Stone, he gives the order. He's like, a abandon selective target and just shoot anyone at ground level. We're gone code red. And like the sniper dudes are like, what? And he's like, just fucking shoot everybody at ground level. Just kill. And again, right, that always reminded me of a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I was looking at it, I was like, wouldn't that be so badass to be a sniper up there and you're like shooting zombies? Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, but would it be?
Oh, it'd be terrible. Yeah, and knowing that like at some point I have to come off this roof.
Yeah, I know. Because if you run out of ammo, all that stuff.
That would be grim. Yeah, the code red thing. It shows as well like how disposable we really are. And that like, you know, characters like Captain Stone or whatever he is, he's just kind of like a product of the time where he doesn't care. He's just like, yeah, code red, kill everyone. There's no like, oh, there's some people that are not infected. It's like, no. When shit hits the fan, we're just going to kill everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. I don't care. And then looking at how they panic as well, because you can kind of sense that as well, that those military guys that are in like that, what do they call that when they're in a room?
Barracks?
Yeah, but they call it something where they have like those like kind of impromptu like setup. I can't think it'll come to me at some point, but how you can tell like a lot of the room were kind of panicking, going, well, my man, that didn't work. The shooting them all is not working either. It's spreading way quicker than we thought. They're killing our men. They're turning into infected. And it's just,
I know,
you can
there's
tell.
no
like,
way out, man.
Yeah.
Like it is pretty like how fast paced it goes from like everyone's in full panic mode. And then you're just like, it's just like boom, 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 boom. Like you see soldiers on the ground, everyone's slaughtered. You're running past all these dead bodies. Like, and eventually I'm sure they're going to wake up with this virus. And then it's like, and like I said, these stupid kids, it's their fault. Mm-hmm. And then when they're like, it's like your fault. You did this. Your fault. Take ownership.
And again, like there's definitely undertones there as well. Like, I mean, the virus not only destroys the individuals, but it also kind of, you can see they've tried to like rebuild society, and like just in one fell swoop, it's destroyed that society again. And it kind of shines a light on like, I suppose, our arrogance as like as people to think that we can control nature in a way.
Yeah, I know.
You know, the idea of controlling rage, it's like not actually possible.
Look what they're trying to do. They're gonna like, even the stuff with the weather, right? Like people may not believe this, but there's 100% patents of this, and it's called geoengineering. Look it up, where they've like, you know, Dubai admitted to it. They put all this like you put barium, aluminum oxide into the sky and other heavy metals, and it produces rain. Dubai admitted that they did this, and then it caused a massive, pretty much like hurricane. And they were like, oops, we fucked up. And it's like, yeah, stop fucking with nature. Stop trying to control gods, whoever developed this simulation or whatever the hell it is. Stop trying to fuck with it, because eventually it's going to fuck back. I've always said that. You fuck with Mother Nature enough, eventually she's going to be like, no, this is my playing field. I'm just going to erase you off of my body because you're nothing more than a virus on Mother Earth, right? Mother Gaia, as the indigenous would say, right?
And that's the thing I think
we are the real virus.
Just as scary, to be honest,
yeah.
is the fact that, you know, if something like this were to happen, or like you're saying about controlling the weather and stuff, it may not always be their intention to have some big, huge disaster, but then they don't know what they're fucking with either. And then if something happens, you actually don't know how to like contain it. So like this, they were fucking around with a virus. It
like
got
Wuhan.
out. And but
I believe in a different aspect.
But like, let's say that's the story. Let's say that's the actual fact, and that happens, and then very quickly you see like it's like, oh, we don't actually, our contingency plans don't work. We actually can't contain any of this stuff. When
gain of function should not be a real fucking thing. That's absurd. That you're like, okay, we have this virus. Let's see how much we can weaponize this virus. Because for the people that don't know, gain of function is a actual real thing that should be banned across the planet. You shouldn't be able to like mess with a virus and just see, we have to see, because it's usually done for biowarfare and stuff like that, of like, hey, well, China's doing it, we need to all do it too, or whatever. And it's like, how deadly can we make this virus for biowarfare, because the other side of the world, some other country is doing it, so we need to do it faster than they can do it. And then you're like, you're a fucking idiot. You're going to destroy the world with your ineptitude to actually realize what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy, man.
And that's probably the scariest part for me, to be honest with you.
humans being human.
Yeah, pretty much. And like them, the fact that they go code red like pretty much instantly as well. It's another like look at the whole human nature thing. The I don't know, being right or winning at all costs, and you know, it's that thing again. What I like about this is we're watching, for the most part, like normal everyday people just being crushed under the weight of something that they can't overcome. Versus in a lot of these movies, we're watching heroes overcome insurmountable odds. If you know what I mean? Like you'll know, like you'll be introduced, say, to a character like Doyle, and it's like, you know, he's going to be the guy that's going to kill like 500 zombies on his own, and at the end he's going to like fly away in a helicopter on its own and save everybody. Whereas what I kind of liked about these is you didn't really know. I'm like, I don't know who's going to live or die here, to be honest, because it just seems like the whole thing is fucked.
Look what happened to Jeremy Reiner's character, right?
Yeah, so, I know, right? Like, and that was something actually that it never clicked with me either. But you know, when he says to them, "I'll meet you guys there," and he gives himself up or whatever, he goes out to like push the car. So I never picked this up till I was listening to something about this. And if you look at that, supposedly when he turns to Scarlett and he says to her, "I'll meet you guys there," he does this like kind of, his eyes kind of open a little bit wide, as much to say like, just agree with me. And then when he gets out, he leaves his rifle and his guns inside the car, which makes no sense, because if he's going to run somewhere, he's obviously going to need a fucking weapon.
Yeah, so he sacrificed himself.
Yeah, so he obviously knew that he was completely fucked when he was getting out anyway. Like there was no point where he was like, yeah, I will actually be meeting there.
I just look at the kids and be like, this is your fucking fault. Don't forget it. Bye-bye.
I literally just turn around with the fucking rifle and put it to their heads and go, you know what you're going to do? You're going to get out and you're going to push me and her.
Yeah, I know,
and then you're going to get burnt to death. Yeah, fuck you.
Because like, it literally is their fault. There's a couple movies that are like this. I can't think of another one, but I feel like we've even talked about a movie like this where I'm like, if these people didn't do A, B, and C, this movie would not exist. It's because of like the stupidity of like obviously humans, and that's like part of these stories is like human nature and what people will do and get involved with out of their own stupidity and ignorance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think as well, Scarlett was going to be the one. She was going to be the one actually to get out and get burnt to death originally in the script.
Really?
It was going to be the woman, and then they were going to leave the kids with Doyle, and then he was going to get clubbed to death by the dad. But supposedly when they looked at the scene back, they were like, the audience probably won't be. Well, yeah, they felt like the audience wouldn't be as scared for the kids if they were going underground with a fucking soldier.
Yeah, that's another scene's pretty gnarly when they're underground and they only have the night vision. Pretty cool, pretty bold choice, but it worked out and it was creepy.
I just love a lot of like the aesthetics of this, like how they were able to shoot some of these scenes and genuinely make it look like the place was abandoned and like they were trying to rebuild it.
For all intensive purposes or whatever, if that's how I want to phrase that. I do think at some point maybe I'll write something out for Strange Brew and we'll do like a big fun live stream about zombies. No, because that would be a fun live stream thing, even if we just had basic breakdowns, just because like it is interesting to ponder about how it would happen. What would you do to survive? What type of viruses could it be? Would it be a kind of virus like we think it would be? You know, me and Billy kind of alluded to this stuff. Would it be like a shot or something, right? A needle? Mm-hmm. Would it be this, that? Would it be a virus that breaks out where they're mutating things, right? Like this idea, like, you know, AIDS was created in a laboratory. People don't want to believe that's a fact. You can easily look into this stuff. People say the 50s, but even Ill Bill is a lie where he's like 1975, they created AIDS inside a laboratory. And like all that stuff is probably true. Like Fauci had something to do with it, supposedly. And they just like take a virus, mutate it, you know, like this idea that, oh, somebody fucked a monkey. And then it, you know, it's probably a lot like this movie where they're messing around with things they shouldn't be. And then all of a sudden it breaks out and you're like, pretty strange. There's a lot of coincidences, not.
Yeah. And you're never going to take the fall. That's the thing. They're never going to double down and go, you know what, guys, our fuck up. You're just going to try and do whatever, and you'll just kill whoever. You'll just remove and whatever you think is the best course of action.
Look what's happened throughout the last couple of years, even around the world, right? No government official has been held accountable. Are you kidding me? It's never going to happen. They don't believe in accountability.
Even in this movie, when they go code red and they start shooting everybody, and Stone realizes, oh shit, that's not really working either. And then he's like, right, let's just fucking napalm everything.
Yeah.
This whole area, let's just this one section here. Let's just bomb everything. And I'm like,
yeah, that was wild too.
I'm like, that's probably what would happen though. They'll just keep going scorched earth and just go, I don't know, let's fucking just blow everything up. I don't know, nuke it, whatever. And it's like, you're not really coming up with a solution. Like,
it's true. That's like the Samson option in Israel. If Israel's existence is threatened, they plan to nuke the world. That is in their own writing, people. So like that's how far they'll take stuff if people choose to push the same way. People don't know what these governments are really doing when it's like messing around with Russia and all this stuff. Like if one person gets nuked, they're gonna press the nuke and everybody gets nuked, and then we're all done because of our own essentially the government's self-interest and greed and control and stuff,
and
right?
You have all the ego and everything comes into it then. I don't know if it was Danny Boyle or some of them were talking about people talking about the decisions made within the movie about character choices being stupid and things like that. And they were like, look, there's a certain amount of we have to just create situations for the story to progress, or there's no possible way to be able to expand. But he was like, there was a lot of talk about trying to make, people being incompetent and preventable disasters another horror of this, and how the human mind works. What was it he said? Humanity is selfish and willing to jeopardize the well-being of the entire population for their own personal whims, emotional comfort, and individual survival. And
true.
They tried to use this. Now, I don't know if they conveyed it as well as that, but that was kind of the thought process they had was, well, when people are put in a position where they can get instant gratification or it's something that's really personal to them, they tend to not, in that moment, not tend to think or care about anybody else or the repercussions. You just go, well,
100%.
It's like when people cheat or whatever, and you go, well, I'm not going to really think about the other person right now. I'm just going to cheat. And then as soon as I'm finished, then it may dawn on me that, whoops, that was a really bad idea.
I know, right? And that's when we see this all in real life, where they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't. You shouldn't have done.
Yep. And then it's too late then. And then what happens?
I know. Then it's like a doom. And that's why it's funny. It's like all these people, it's like, well, in putting their faith into government structures in general, whether it be in a movie or real life, that they're like, oh yeah, they're going to help and save us. No, they're going to save themselves. They have bunkers, billions of dollars. They have planes, jets, black helicopters, all this stuff. If they think their existence is threatened, they will nuke everybody and then save themselves and come up in 50 years and then rebuild with the little population that they have left using fucking goddamn who knows, robots. Right, that's the apocalypse that we're really heading into for people that don't realize robots.
I don't know if you've seen that thing where I don't know if it was in China or somewhere where they have that factory now that runs 24/7 and it's in complete darkness. They're able to make a phone per second, and it's this giant factory that's in complete darkness because it's all automated, so it doesn't need lights, and it runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then obviously they have, a skeleton crew to go in and maintain machines and stuff and make sure everything is working or whatever. But there's basically no workers.
They're going to phase this out of existence. It doesn't matter. Trump and Elon are on board with this stuff.
Do you know what's mad though? We used to laugh at things when you used to look at Terminator and stuff and you go, ha, robot. And you look at Cyberdyne and Skynet and all and go, ha, that's so fake and all, it's so ridiculous. Ha, James Cameron. And now it's the more I look at that, the more I'm like, wow, it could actually end up like Big Scorched or we're getting shot with laser beams and stuff if we don't comply.
Well, it's kind of like a Hawaii, man. Not gonna lie, it's already kind of happening. But they're making fucking dog robots with machine guns on their backs and stuff like that. People, you realize that what they're developing now is only going to be used against us. That's the only reason they want to control the mass population. These people are that crazy. If people don't want, you think movies are scary and you think movies are oh, that could never happen, bro. That can never happen. It's going to happen. We're going to allow it to happen. You're going to watch it happen. I've said this for years. Don't worry. All these people, I think that's just fake and conspiracy theory stuff. No. You'll watch some of these movies that we've watched come very, very realistic. There's crazier things going on in the world right now than some of these movies.
which is fucking scary.
Yes.
Well, what did you think towards the end? You know, when you see we see Flint's helicopter again, and then it's like in Paris, and you see like the infected running by the
helicopter
Eiffel Tower.
cutting up scene.
No, right at the end where you see like that. Obviously, the infection is after spreading to Paris.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of that? I thought that was a really good like kind of open ended ending in a way, because it was like, now not only have they fucked up those kids, not only have the kids fucked up what happened in London a second time, now they've gotten in the helicopter with the dude and he's brought them to Paris, and now they've fucking infected Paris as well.
Yeah, it's all their fault, right? But that scene with the helicopter coming down when it's like cutting up all the zombies, that was pretty gnarly. Actually, I like that. But
I
yeah,
like as well that
false, man.
What I liked about that as well was he didn't just straight up go, "Oh, I'm going to use this helicopter to chop people up." He made that decision because the dude jumped on the fucking. Remember the guy? He's like, "No, I'm taking Doyle, but I can't take passengers. I've been told not to. Like, we won't be allowed back." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And the dude just jumps on the side of the helicopter and he just brings him off.
Yeah, he's like, "Bye bye." Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, and like I said, this whole movie is these kids. This is the fault of the kids, and then they like have to destroy everything because of these dumb kids. It's your fault.
There's a lot of
these kids didn't exist or they died. This movie wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I know, right? And everyone would be fine.
Yeah.
There is a lot of like subtle choices in this as well. I listened to the director's commentary with the two guys. I think they're Spanish, and so the scene where Don is sitting with the kids and he's explaining what happened, you know, with the mother. Remember before she's found? Remember he's like, "Oh, you know, I saw her die or whatever." So I didn't realize, like, but they thought about this a lot more. So up until that point, we're seeing a lot of the camera angles are done in a handheld kind of. It's very like jerky and like the camera's kind of moving freely. And in that scene, it changes, if you look at it, to completely static shots. So it's looking directly at the two kids, and then it's looking over their shoulder directly at the dad's face. And then after that, when like you can tell they're a bit like, what do you mean? The camera goes above and we're looking down, and he's sitting on one chair, and he's like pretty far away from the kids, and they're both sitting in the same chair beside each other. And they were like, we wanted to kind of convey that, you know, how far apart they're drifting, and the fact that the kids maybe don't truly believe what he said, or felt like maybe they felt like maybe he should have maybe died in the process of trying to save her. Which I would have never ever picked up on that.
Yeah, it's cool though. Little things that they would have done.
Oh, yeah, I do like the way they at least try to do that. I love the change of pace, but a lot of people like didn't like the lack of character exploration from the first one. Like, I mean, Don and Alice get brought back together, and then he's infected and she's dead 2 seconds later. And that's like around the 40-minute mark, and like there's two very appealing and deep characters that are just kind of gone because he's infected now, and she's like, well, she's dead, so she's not important anymore. Him gouging her eyes out as well, I think might have been like an undertone of him not being able to like take like her eyes looking at him, or not being able to look her in the eye after.
Yeah, I know. Actually, that's kind of true, because it shows that scene where she's like looking at him like, what the fuck? Yeah.
And I do think it's probably two vastly different movies.
Yeah, I think they're very different.
Yeah, but answering the same quest or the same problem with two different answers, kind of. Does that make sense? Oh, here's a random piece of information, right, that nobody's going to give a shit about, but I just thought I'd bring up and let everybody know. So during the containment breach, where the snipers are on the rooftops, one of them on the radio, if you listen, mentions FUBAR, right? FUBAR over the radio.
You know what that means? Fucked up beyond all recognition.
I didn't notice. I was like, weird. I had no idea about this, that it was coined by the US military during World War II, and it only became popular because it was used in Saving Private Ryan.
I would like at some point to do an off-brand episode about, there's a movie called FUBAR 1 and 2, and it's like a Canadian comedy movie. If you've not seen it, it's actually pretty funny. The first one is shot like a documentary style of these two like kind of Albertan Canadians, and it's pretty funny. If you've never seen it, look up Food Bar. Two is a lot more funny, a lot funnier, whatever the phrase is. But it's they're good comedy movies because it's just about these like drunken Canadian dudes that don't really give a fuck and are poor, and then there's a twist at the end of the first one, how it's filmed like a doc, and you just see this twist happen, and it's like kind of dark. It's a dark comedy. You would probably respect it. You probably like it.
I'll look it up after this.
That's fun.
Did you know when there's the nighttime scenes in this, when the movie gets going now, not at the start, afterwards, like halfway through, let's say. Did you ever find that the nighttime scenes were a bit weird?
Yeah, they looked kind of weird, yeah.
So, and I always remember that being a thing when I first seen this movie. I was always like, not that I didn't like it, but I was like, the nighttime scenes always feel a bit weird to me. Like I can't see them properly, or I really have to like kind of like focus.
Yeah,
on
I hate that with movies, especially like say you're watching in the daytime, you're like the sun's
yeah,
out,
and it's like impossible to see.
yeah.
So I think I figured out why that is. All the nighttime scenes were shot in the daytime. Because so they had to come up with some process that they created to do this, because the kid was only like 15 or something, and they weren't allowed to film with him at night. And they needed it to look like London, the rest of London was still like, isolated or whatever. So they couldn't have any lights on in any of the buildings or street lights.
Weird.
So if they had filmed at night, obviously they had they couldn't just go to the English Council and be like, turn off all the power for the city till we're ready. So supposedly they shot all that stuff. Now I'm actually kind of fascinated to see how it works, but all of that was shot in the daytime, and then they must do something with the image or something to make it look like night.
Dull it. That'd be hard, and then you're wondering you can't see in some of the scenes because you're like bringing down the brightness and stuff and the contrast.
Yeah, it's like that must be a difficult task. I would have thought that would have been more work.
Yeah,
to be honest. But yeah, like some of my final thoughts. This was actually this morning. I was listening to the commentary and I wrote down, growing up in Ireland and spending so much time in the UK too. There's a real scariness that I can really relate to when seeing a lot of these places, streets, and locations void of people. Even still watching clips of it this morning. There's that shot I was talking about earlier with the kids.
Yep.
I don't know. There's still something about these for me, man. Every time I watch them and I see scenes like that, but in particular, some of the countryside scene at the start, with the house and stuff.
Yeah,
I think growing up in a place like this, it's really unsettling to see that, because you're like, I feel like that's like, just down the road, or that looks like where I grew up. And it makes me really uncomfortable every time I see it. And then obviously a lot of what we've talked about, things that are going on in the world and people are becoming more aware of things. It kind of scares me about like someday will I be looking at that for real, if that makes sense. Like some of the shots where
you're not careful,
like some of those shots where you were talking about where the kids go out to like find their old house or whatever, and we're seeing them. I'm trying to pull them up here for people who are watching, but
think about 15-minute cities, all that stuff. People think it's out of convenience. They can control us through convenience, right? That's the whole idea. The more convenient they make, you can buy a robot for $25,000 and it will fucking wipe your ass for you and do your laundry and suck you off. And it's just like, until it fucking bites your dick off and then slaughters you and then goes out in the neighborhood and starts killing every human in its path. Like, I don't think people realize the direction that we're headed, because I think the elites, the parasite, whatever the fuck, the people in charge, I think they want AI to solve all their problems. They're like, we don't know what to do. We're just going to plug some things into AI, see if it comes up with a solution that we can take dominance and control over the population. I think they're reliant. They want to create a prison controlled by AI. They want to create a world that they can be gods and rule over through like a simulation type, VR goggle headset, like Ready Player One. And we're heading.
Those are the concepts that scare me, because what happens is, though, if we continue to go down paths like this, is that the people that should be fearing and like not trusting of right now will definitely get removed from the equation, and like with something like AI, for example, if AI gets to a point where I really hope it never does, but it gets so intelligent that like something like Terminator doesn't seem as ridiculous anymore, where, something like Cyberdyne decides, oh, I don't actually need my creator now, so I can just kill everybody and I'll just do my own thing
dude,
and you
it
can't shut
reminds
me
me of
down.
like some sort of thing. Like it's not the same thing. In Dune, where the guy gets brought up and he's like on that like thing hooked to him or whatever. It's like that. But imagine if the AI is controlling all the like shadow elites, the Rothschilds, and all these other like families. It goes to a point where they're just plugged in to the cyber, whatever it is, right? Skynet, and then they're just controlled by the AI, and they're nothing more than puppets, and there's no real humans in charge anymore. It's
Think about
just
how
some,
scary that is.
yeah, that's the Matrix type thing, right? Like you have Ready Player One is like just before you think about it, the Matrix happens, where everyone's just going into like plug into their pods and eat their bugs, and then all of a sudden the machines take over at some point, and they don't need you anymore. They don't need you to be convenient in your like little pod because they'll just take control, and they don't need humans anymore.
Yeah, it's quite scary. I have one really quick thing I want to bring up and talk about really quick before we finish this. But what would you rate this movie out of 10 rage viruses or whatever?
Like a 7. It's that the kids shouldn't have done what they did. It's like there's some plot holes that could be readdressed, and there's different ways they could have taken the direction of this movie. Overall, it's a decent movie. It's a fun horror movie. It's fast paced. There's some pretty cool scenes within the movie. I'd say a 7.5-ish kind of thing. Like it's for a horror movie overall and a zombie movie, it's pretty decent, but there's obviously like, man, this didn't need to happen. These stupid kids.
Yeah, if I can remove the fact that glaring plot hole, other than that, I'd probably give this an 8 or an 8.5 just for me personally, through rewatchability. And like I said, there's something, I don't know if it's living in Ireland and haven't spent so much time in London. There's a sort of an eeriness, or every time I put it on, I'm like, oh, that makes me like really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, and I suppose it's like that thing that like I can't relate to, if I watched a movie and it's Toronto or whatever's closest to you and it's like getting blown to pieces, I can't relate because I haven't lived there.
No, I know what you mean.
I see somewhere near me
here, I'm like, it's we kind of look similar, but we don't have, our countrysides look kind of different. It's just it just looks different. I don't know how to explain it, but our farmland looks different. There's a lot of different elements of like what our cities and stuff look like. But similar, because Canada is a Eurocentric, same with the United States used to be a Eurocentric society and civilization that was built out of wilderness, pretty much, right? So like there is reflections in some of the architecture and buildings and stuff like that, but it is a lot different, right? See the look of Ireland, especially in your closed off little towns. It's different. We're starting to become more like that, but because they need to house everybody in a small little spot, right? But similar but not. Same but different.
So yeah, a lot of why we decided to do this now and why this will release in the same week as the new movie is because of that. I suppose it's become somewhat relevant again in the zeitgeist. We have 28 years later coming out and things like that, and I think it's probably the perfect time to revisit these and talk about some of those subtexts and the things that people don't talk about. And then hopefully we'll be able to. The new movie comes out.
I will not be able to get out to a theater. I'll have to pirate it.
June 20th, I think it is. It comes out.
So will be like maybe 12 days old, 13 days, 15 days old.
Hopefully sometime in July when Tom is back, one of the first things we might be able to record is like maybe a 45-minute like chat about the new one or whatever, and how we feel about how it fits in, because they've obviously announced that this new one has been announced as a trilogy. So we've already got this one is coming out. So it's 28 years later, is coming out on June 20th, 2025. And they've already said, I think, that February 2026 is going to be 28 days later. Yeah, 28 days later, The Bone Temple.
Weird.
Is what it's going to be called. So there's a cult element in this, I think. And I think it's something to do with survivors, people who have managed to survive this thing.
Tatum McBride and Channing Tatum,
and it's become I don't know what way this is going to work out. But there's this website that's up called rageleaks.net, and you could only find out about it if you watch the trailer. There's a flash of something that comes up in the trailer, and it's literally like a millisecond. But obviously, people who love this shit, like someone was after freeze framing it, and they saw this, so they found a website, and then you had to solve some fucking thing.
It's like late 90s, early 2000s type things they used to
do. They're really leaning back into that stuff, like, and so then you had to figure out like what the password was. So the password is Memento Mori, I think. So I'm gonna just try and submit this and see, does it actually work? Oh, so it.
Oh, weird.
Wow, it must be wrong.
Yeah, you tried and it didn't work. Make sure you type it right.
Weird.
Invalid credentials.
So that was the supposed
weird.
I thought we were gonna I thought we were gonna get to see something cool there.
Aaron fucked up.
Yeah, I did. Now I've ruined it all for everybody. Pages password protected with admin hard coded username, blah blah blah.
Wow, Aaron, didn't do your due diligence. I'm cooking a ham for everybody. Big old greasy ham. Covered in mustard. Now I'm and I gotta go make the base, a little bit of brown sugar, Worcester sauce. Did you get it?
Oh, okay. So it was that. I must have been typing it wrong. So we have, there's some sort of a countdown clock thing that says 27 years, 46 weeks, 3 days, 17 hours, 25 minutes, and 26 seconds. What is really happening behind the blockade? And then we have, I assume these are.
Click on one. Click on
images.
Weird.
Okay, so Life on Patrol, Sammy X, Love X, and it's an image. So it's going to get into some
character development, I'm guessing. Weird.
Oh, for fuck's sake, it's in a different language. Is this in Finnish? Because wasn't the plane at the end of 28 Days Later? Remember they hear somebody talking?
Yeah, maybe.
Finnish pilot.
That's probably it.
Okay, so
try to pronounce
that. Surveillance report. Commune threat level low. Emergent activity low. Tidal island provides increased security and long range view of threats. Stable social order keeps community secure. 0 attempts at breaking quarantine. Oh, so this is the island I think that the story of this new movie is going to be based on. So it's an island like out in the middle of the water, and there's like this weird land bridge that like appears and disappears when the tide goes in and out.
Weird.
And this is how they're keeping themselves safe.
Yeah.
So you can see there, you can like there's an image and you can see the land bridge like that goes into the mainland.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this will all fit in. I'm actually really interested to see how like what they come up with in this. So there's a message here as well that says the virus brought us more than rage. The sorrow for our lost home, the guilt for the ones we left behind, the righteous indignation for the secrets being kept from us. It's been almost 28 years since the outbreak and still not a single shred of truth about what's really going on. They say it's to protect us. It's for our own good. After all this time, what are they still hiding? They classify satellite images. They forbid any communication with the survivor communities. They suppress rumors and discredit reports that somehow the infected have adapted. They don't want us to see, but we must bear witness, all of us.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dude, it seems really on point though. Like,
our society.
Yeah, life now, which is kind of scary.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's like, man. I'm glad we did this and stuff. It's I think it's appropriate considering the world, the time, the movie that's coming out. So it should be obviously support the show too, everybody out there. You like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like your little things that you guys can do, it means more to us than you know, man.
Yes, please do. Like, share, support, let us know your thoughts, agree, disagree with us or whatever, but do it in a normal way. We don't have to like fight and argue. We can just do it.
You don't have to punch heads air with punch heads off each other for little indiscrepancies or different points of views. Right. The whole idea is like what we've lost a lot of times is this connectiveness, where people have been so polarized by political propaganda, they can't have a conversation anymore. A lot of times, like I openly asked people to debate me. Nobody will, but I'd be like, yeah, if you want to have a conversation, want to debate about this stuff and why you think the ways you do and why the ways I think I do is like, it's about having a conversation. Nobody can rationalize anymore and have a conversation because they've all been brainwashed. Bam, bam, bam. That's the real apocalypse. Yeah.
Yes. Everything he said Like I said, if you've gotten this far, guys, we do appreciate you as always. You know, a like, a share, a subscribe, or whatever, it goes a long way. We do.
I'm gonna go make a ham. I'm gonna go
eventually
make a ham.
Hope to live off the show.
Yes.
But yeah, keep an eye out. We will continue to have episodes come out, and Tom will be on a little bit of a hiatus for a while, but you guys won't notice any difference. And hopefully,
that's what I'm doing with my show too.
In mid-July, we'll be able to reconvene, and we'll get a stream out there or an episode out there reviewing 28 years later.
I might have to pirate it.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. We don't condone pirating.
No, we don't. No. I actually say you should support the movies and like the cinema if you enjoy it, right? Some especially horror, but
I'll go to see it and I'll video call you the whole movie.
Yeah, just like be you're on candid camera, from Scary Movie, and just like and then spoiling the movie. I heard what did she say something about like I heard Romeo kills Juliet or whatever, and everyone gets.
Do you remember when that used to be the thing though? I remember being in Chinatown in New York, and I would get pirated DVDs or videotapes actually at the time, and I remember getting Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. And like that was back in the time where movies came out like literally weeks, if not months later in Ireland.
Yeah.
I came home, dude, with this Spider-Man tape, right? I had no idea if it looked like garbage or what it looked like. And like, I was like hot shit in town. Everyone was like, oh my God, you have fucking Spider-Man. Now, I won't lie and say in 2002, I wore that shit out. And like, I watched it a million times. Everybody I knew watched it a million times. It was the biggest pile of trash. Like, it was like someone filmed it like on like the first phone ever invented, and they put like Vaseline across the camera, and like it was just the blurriest, crooked, like the camera was like sideways. I could see like dudes' heads. I could hear people talking in the background, and I was like, but
people were so desperate for that stuff. They're like, oh, I'll watch this. But then we all had tiny little TVs and stuff too.
It just seems so cool. But anyway, we're in the modern age now, and we're all going to be ruled by robots in years to come. But yeah, for now, appreciate everybody. We appreciate the audience. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you really soon. Peace, everybody.